A recruitment for the Royal Guard is underway for Curtis Schonberg. The knights, having read the message, cannot help but be surprised. Their souls are somehow uneasy, because everyone knows that the man is dangerous. He has a terrible character. Chloe steps forward and announces that she is going to take on the case. And people look at her in surprise, but all she cares about is the quarterly bonus of 200% of her salary. The beauty doesn't think it's necessary to try to dissuade her. The payment will be enough for the girl's family to live for one season, and they won't have to suffer for the entire first quarter. Despite all the wars and risks, it is enough to work for a year, then you can leave. The lady does not think that the Archduke will be too strict. The most important thing is that the family does not starve. It seemed like it would be easy, but Advance was wrong. Curtis turned out to be 200% insane. No one could last under this cretin's control. Maximum 2 months. The reason is obvious. The young man's favorite pastime was roll call. Everyone in the squad had to stand with their heads down. Chloe was constantly given disciplinary sanctions. Even though she worked late, no one cared. The commander is the son of the kingdom, and also an archduke. He is so overwhelmed with work that he is constantly working, and the adjutant has to comply. The penalties did not bother the girl much, because she was well paid, and that is the main thing. The heroine remained in subordination for 3 months. Sometimes she wanted to forget about everything, but did not do this, the man calls Chloe, calmly asks if she heard everything that was said. Jumping up, she declares in panic that she heard everything. The man, smiling, says that she wants to be shaken off again, once. The adjutant said this phrase to her colleague, unaware that the Duke himself was behind her. As an apology, the girl promises to stand in the rack for another 30 minutes. Curtis sees that the lady has relaxed too much. As a punishment, he considers the best solution to be a salary cut. Her facial expression changes, because money is the most important thing for Chloe. And besides, she will be required to assist at the diplomatic banquet where Duke Glintrith will be present. It won't work. Chloe doesn't have suitable clothes. She doesn't even get paid. The man shrugs. Because the lieutenant has nothing to dress up for. She has a Royal Guard uniform. The meeting was scheduled at the mansion for 6 p.m. Upon arrival, the lady could not stop being amazed by the size of the estate. After all, the third state rank can lay claim to special luxury. The butler is surprised that the adjutant at the banquet is a girl, considering that his lordship especially insisted on this. The banquet will be a platform for finding a bride for the gentleman. This is only an assumption. It's obvious that there will be a meeting between Lord and Lady Glintrith there. She must have plenty of other suitable and decent candidates. The Archduke's pedigree really does have some dark spots. Advance thinks about weaknesses. She would also like to know them in order to skillfully use them. The lieutenant is met by a man who is surprised that she arrived much later than expected. The brunette froze. They were wearing the same clothes, but she looked more like a gray mouse. She had no jewelry at all. Curtis clicked his tongue as he took off his brooch. You shouldn't be looking like this. The only thought that runs through my head is why the young man is so kind, because it's not like him. One phrase brings everything back to normal. No more questions arise. It's time to go. The hall is full of decorations. Everything sparkles. But it's better not to stare. Schonberg goes up to His Majesty. He smiles to greet. I was just looking for you. The brunette points to a huge portrait. The young man has heard enough about it, but he is told again that this will be his future wife, Lady Isabella Glintrith, a lady of incredible beauty. The blonde snorts. He didn't think it would be his bride and had never heard of it. A quarrel begins, but not in raised voices. Chloe's chest tightens with stress. The gentleman wants to tell her something. It's important. Coming from the Archduke's lips is not at all what His Majesty expects. The man has already promised one lady to marry her. To demonstrate his intentions, he is attracting Advance. I am talking about her. Life doesn't always go the way you want it to. The woman gets angry. All the time she was thinking only about how much she wants to hit the young man at least once, or even better, make him stand head down. The young man constantly did nothing but ruin her life. He always forced the adjutant to work overtime, and also never accepted her reports the first time, forcing her to constantly redo them. Standing in front of his brother, the blonde calmly explains that he has met the love of his life in Chloe, smiling tensely as he explains that he is attracted to her narrow-mindedness. The invitation to the banquet itself was strange, but the girl could not have imagined that something like this would happen. Everything fell into place in her head. If the gentleman was not corrected, there would only be more problems later. The Archduke doesn't show it, but with his murderous aura, he says that he will explain everything later. This has zero effect. Chloe can't figure it out. She opens her mouth, but then she feels a palm on her hand. The young man writes with his finger on his palm with unimaginable speed. He shows that from now on, the girl will have many privileges to which she must agree. The king remains perplexed. The brunette doesn't mind what they're offering her, still trying to put 2 plus 2 together, and comes to the conclusion that the Archduke simply doesn't want to marry Glintrant. Or perhaps there's a more serious reason behind it. Trade between the rich and the poor operates in Ivanka's empire. Some politics are not so simple. If Curtis marries a commoner, he will also become one, and therefore lose his right to the throne. To avoid this, he is obliged to marry an aristocrat, but no one meets the standards. By marrying Lady Isabella, a love affair arises between the two countries, and this is very beneficial for the king. Even if the duke is looking for a man to avoid marriage, there is simply no one around except commoners. There are 2 options left, to go abroad or to lose the right to the throne. In these 2 situations, the young man had to face a dilemma, because the situation is not at all simple. Abvons is cunning. He turned on the variable. Chloe's family is extremely poor, but surprisingly, they bear the title of baronet. If the young man marries the adjutant, he can easily avoid marriage without losing his right to inheritance. The girl has other advantages too. She can't easily refuse a request, divorce won't be a problem, and she will never fall in love with her husband. Everything is working out too well for Curtis. The blonde ends the conversation with gestures and begins to whisper. He knows that the lieutenant needs money. Remembering his brother and sister, the beauty feels how her heart noticeably contracts. A terrible feeling. The animal, driven into a cage, cannot escape, but has to play along. Stepping half a step forward, the beauty calmly declares that she was made an offer she could not refuse. Turning on her inner actress, the maiden tearfully remarks that she cannot behave like that in front of the king. She is very touched, because she cannot wait for the moment when they will be married. The people in the hall begin to clap. Most of them remain perplexed. Pressing the bride closer, the Duke quietly says that they will have a conversation later, to which he receives consent. Curtis was born to King Ivanus and Princess Glintrant. The young man's mother was very wise. She did not want him to die of hunger in the war, and asked for the status of both countries. Thanks to her persistence, the demand was fulfilled. With age, the man not only became more handsome, but also grew smart and talented. To fulfill the duty of the eldest child, he joined the army and remained the Archduke of Schönberg, while still having the right to the throne. The situation greatly worried the king, so the young man had to try to solve this problem. The discussion of options for girls for marriage ended. The master had someone in mind, but he was not sure whether she would obey. The banquet ended. The Duke was glad that they played along with him. Chloe only recently realized that she had such a talent for acting. Initially, Ivanus did not believe it until the very end, reminding that lying is treason. The girl even got out of it there. The whole time since the proposal, she had been thinking about refusal. She doubted his lordship. Love is disorderly, but since the man voiced his desires in front of His Majesty, it certainly means something. She couldn't believe that such a person could be sincere while still putting all this out in public. Fake tears of emotion appeared in her eyes. The blonde man stood dissatisfied. Leaning carefully towards him, the adjutant sternly ordered him to watch his facial expression. Ivanus knew that his subordinate was perfect for the role, but he still didn't believe it. The woman did not understand how. Even after the performance, they still did not believe her. A brilliant idea came to her mind. Letting go of the gentleman's jacket, she decided to take this step. The hand points to the brooch that is on the chest. The decoration is evidence that her beloved made a marriage proposal. On the back, there is the seal of the Schönberg family. Even this could be considered a lie, but there is no point in trying to continue looking for evidence because this could make the nobility angry. The situation resolved, His Majesty's face twisted with anger. The young man planned to ask for cooperation. They had to pretend that the situation in their love relationship had changed and that they would have to have a wedding so that everyone would believe it. The beauty doesn't want to be at a loss. She needs a lot. She's been through a lot in 3 months, and the latest events are too much. Smiling, Chloe ominously asks, "Are you ready to do anything for our cooperation?" In a calm voice, the lieutenant tells the young man to kneel. She smiles, but imagines how she would like to take revenge. He will answer for all the overtime and punishments that happened over the past few days. Before doing what was asked, the blonde remembers that he needs to give something. There is a ring in the box. It was with this that the late king proposed to Curtis's mother. Getting down on one knee, the man calmly asks to marry him. The girl does not know if this is right. The jewel is known. This is the divine flame. The young man explains that since they are getting married, there is no way around a marriage proposal. The heroine snorts, a little burdened by the ring of her ancestors. In his head, everything is not quite as it seemed at first. The blonde asks again, clarifying what was required of him when they told him to kneel. Everything is simple. The gentleman is ordered to lower his head down. Standing up, the Archduke clarifies what the adjutant will gain from this. If he thinks about what is happening, perhaps he will understand the essence. For everything Curtis has done, he is obliged to agree to any order. The brunette plays on pity, reminding her about her family, who will have to face the gaze of other aristocrats in the morning. This marriage will affect not only her, but also family members will be pointed at because of their low status. Obwans has 3 younger siblings who couldn't even finish school thanks to the man's behavior. These children found themselves in an unexpected situation. The deed is done. The lady cannot avoid marriage with his lordship. Looking away, the blonde promises to take care of the nobility and other problems. Despite this, Chloe wishes to be considered the dominant party in this contract. I repeat again, lower your head. The hero cannot object if he is against it. He can go to the king and then enjoy his new life on the shores of Glintrant. An ominous silence hangs. The Duke approaches and agrees through clenched teeth. Taking 2 steps back, the blonde drops into a headstand. He asks how long he will have to stand like that. A minute is enough. The beauty has already seen his determination, so there are no more problems. There will be no revenge from Shenber. He realized that the bride is exactly what he wanted. This is a hint that the deal is going well. He especially likes the woman's resourcefulness. You can't take that away from her. It is not the heroine's responsibility to become a victim of a deal. The man is going to propose again. Abvans is allowed to thoroughly suck all the blood during the short-lived marriage. Of course, the girl cannot count on becoming the full owner of the soul, but temporary control will be transferred to her. The brunette does not show her bewilderment. After all, he is not a stray dog who needs a mistress. Chloe has no choice. She agrees to what fate has in store for her. The box ends up in her hands again. The life of the young man's mother changed after she put on this ring, and for the adjutant, this will be a good sign. As he walks away, the Duke begins to take off his jacket. A thought about the first night comes into his head. The beauty screams that this is too much for the engaged couple. They are in a business relationship after all. He doesn't understand what they're talking about, smiles ominously, and explains that since they're going to be husband and wife, they should forget about bonuses for working overtime at night. It's time to adjust the military training schedule for the year. By the morning, the news had spread everywhere. The knights in the squad couldn't understand how this had happened, but on the other hand, everything was obvious. Chloe had even once drawn a portrait of the young man, which meant she was in love with him. The news also didn't pass by the Abvans family's house. Leah, the girl's younger sister, asks how this happened. Just a few days ago, she was scolding Archduke Schönberg, and I have to get out of the situation. He didn't understand my feelings. The girl might have assumed that the older one had sold herself out for money, but no one would marry her that easily. And the lieutenant didn't want to hear anything like that. She had more important things to do. Leah is interested in when the wedding will be scheduled. Her fingers show 7. Apparently, there are only 7 months left. This is much sooner than expected. The surprise on her face is genuine when they explain to her that there is a week left. The man is seated at a table and given a calming drink in the form of tea, and he is asked to recount the incident, going into every detail. The voice is slightly threatening. He is not sure that he will ever be able to forget that day. That girl unceremoniously stood next to the Duke and said things incomprehensible to the mind. It was disgusting to watch. The engagement was published in the newspaper. Of course, they couldn't miss the opportunity. It seems that this has confused the royal family the most. Isabella thinks that what happened can be beneficial. Citizens value the interests of the state, so they will prefer to support His Majesty. Even though the marriage was officially announced, love affairs tend to fall apart easily. The king calms down and leaves. As soon as the door closes, Glintrant throws a cup at the wall with all his might. She barely made it to Avanus. They needed to meet at least once more before the marriage, but hope dies last. The heroine calls the maid and asks to see the things brought as a dowry. One of the vases that is there should be sent to the Archduke as a wedding gift. Chloe arrived to see the gentleman. He asks if everything is finished with the family's move. As it turns out, they like everything, but it will be difficult to get used to it. They will be safe until the wedding, but both of them should fulfill their duty. First of all, it is time to draw up a prenuptial agreement, the first point of which will be announced by the lieutenant. The woman wants to prohibit overtime work during the contract. This clause is not only for her benefit, but also for the man's reputation. He cannot be a tyrant to his own wife. He's not impressed, because everyone already knows how strict he is as a boss. Chloe manages to convince him, because a husband and a boss are two different statuses. They feel sorry for her. She'll have to get used to it. Going to a lot of banquets will be something inevitable. While there won't be any overtime while serving as a royal guard, the heroine is overjoyed that at least she's managed to achieve victory in something. The Archduke moves on. He is interested to know whether the girl will continue to serve as his adjutant after marriage. The assistant asks not to worry. No one except Chloe would ever agree to be subordinate to Curtis. Point 2 is quite decent. It talks about payment for contracts in the amount of $1 million and a 400% salary increase. The gentleman agrees only to the first, which makes the girl angry. The salary is not taken from the pocket, but from the state treasury. If something is increased, the king will constantly reproach his brother and send him to Glintrant. In exchange, the girl will be provided for. $10 million will be paid per year. The third point states that Abvans must always obey, and without question, the blonde begins to get irritated. He does not agree to disciplinary action happening again. The best solution would be to spell out the clause in more detail. A man should respect Chloe and consider her superior. She has the right to 3 personal demands. This is quite fair. It's time to test his lordship's demands. Chloe must make every effort to fulfill her duty that she will receive when bearing the family name. This has already been discussed. Abvans is obliged to acknowledge the fictitious nature of the relationship and should not interfere in it. Her eyes widen in surprise. The brunette asks again if she understood everything correctly. The brunette is not in love. She is not jealous. She just finds it extremely strange that Curtis could have anything at all. He is not capable of such a thing. Having been around him for 3 months, the girl began to take the gentleman for a robot. If it weren't for her third point, she would have gone to hard labor for this. The blonde has a great plan. He will wait a little and then find himself another lover, start dating her, and get a divorce. The reason will be infidelity. Chloe agrees. During the contract, the girl should not have or express personal feelings. She has no right to fall in love. The boundaries are the bed, obviously. She will have to deceive even the servants. I think the situation will be complicated if we use different beds. The Duke knows how to properly touch a nerve. If he has interested the lieutenant, it is better to surrender immediately. She is boiling. A unanimous decision has been made. They will sleep in the same bed. Only the heroine will tie her hair back and wear long clothes. The conversation is over. Noelle is trusted, but asked to keep the contract away from strangers, especially from Agatha. The brunette explains that the girl is his younger sister and loves the Duke. Chloe asks for her condolences. The master orders him to stop clowning around. There is still one unfinished business left. The hero has to send a fake contract. It is intended for the king's family. The status of inheritance is usually transferred to the child, so this is not a problem. Since there will be no children, the dowry should not be discussed. Since the warrior has nothing, the Duke is going to pay $80 million. The dowry offered by Glintrant is equal to exactly this amount. It is necessary to compete with this, With such a volume of money, the gentleman will look nothing less than a man madly in love. A copy of the contract appears in the hands. Anxiety appears inside, as if out of nowhere. The Virgo does not know whether she will be able to live up to expectations. Wedding planning is no less important an aspect. It must be pretentious. Chloe has to try on a dress. She screams because the woman is tightening the corset. It is squeezing her organs and makes her angry. This is the first time for her. She asks how anyone can get married in such a way. As if they have no bones, they try to calm her down. A wedding dress is like a flower and is the main element of the celebration. His lordship chose it. This is how I express my love for you. The brunette asks Madame Abvans to be patient for a little while. After the wedding, everything will be over. She makes efforts to tighten the corset much more. Once again makes her scream even louder than before. Nothing works. Tears are in her eyes. The blonde man assumes that the strength is simply insufficient. He passes as close as possible and bends down. The assistant understands the moment and goes out the door. The heroine feels a breath. She does not have time to come to her senses, when suddenly she feels an impulse. The Duke thinks that he is faking. Julia is asked to come in. There are 3 days until the wedding. Perhaps they can make another option. A custom dress is not one of the existing options. Time is running out. Perhaps they can decorate a ready-made dress. It will be faster. The brunette, listening to all this, thinks that she just wants to run away. She dresses back in her uniform to feel at least a drop of the usual comfort that is important to her. As soon as she buttons her jacket, she turns to the two of them and has a pretty good idea of how to wrap everything up correctly. Time flies. The morning of the radiant wedding ceremony finally arrives. The weather is sunny outside. The birds are chirping. The groom is unusually handsome, but the main character of the wedding feels terrible. The young man notices that she is tired. It is his fault. He had to memorize too much for the sake of the oaths. She thought that becoming a member of the royal family was easy. He was lucky. It's a pity that you can't even hit the Duke. A voice is heard behind her. A young man with blonde hair asks if her uncle is giving his future wife too much of a nightmare. Abvans immediately recognizes Prince Frederick. Putting her hand to her head, she greets him, as befits her position. There is no need for formalities after all. By the evening, Chloe will become much higher in status. She does not calm down, expressing her impulse by saying that until the wedding, she remains just a soldier, nothing more. The boy pretends to groan, asking why such a faithful and beautiful lady is marrying his uncle. If she is being blackmailed, he should give a sign, he laughs. In fact, he came for a slightly different reason, because it is time for the Archduke to pray. Curtis doesn't understand why it was necessary to put on a show when he could have told everything right away. So be it. He leaves. The two are left alone. There is a sharp awkwardness in the air. The girl is alone with her superior, which is unpleasant for her. The silence is broken. Since his uncle has left, Frederick intends to find out the question that interests him. He asks the same thing again. He wants to understand why a maiden gets married. The answer about love causes a strange reaction. A pale smile freezes on his face. After the commotion at the banquet, Curtis immediately visited his nephew. He asked to use the church, because of the wedding, His Majesty would close the doors of the kingdom. The blonde assured that this would not happen again. The young man was skeptical about the answer. He had said directly what he was thinking. For a man who had confessed his deep love in the middle of an official banquet, this sounded wrong, as if he was planning a breakup. Standing before Chloe, the prince shrugs. He understands everything. The Archduke is not interested in the throne. He simply does not need it. But his father suspected him in vain and only constrained his actions, and then came up with an attempt to exile him to Glintrant. It's logical that if the hero were in a border region, he would be faced with constant pirate raids. The only strange thing is that Schönberg chose a lieutenant. It's not at all profitable, which means it's stupid. For a successful marriage, a young man would not keep a girl in the military for several years, even if they conspired for money. After a divorce, he would expect the king's revenge. It would be difficult to cope with anger. This is too risky a decision. The heroine wants to see the Duke's head hit the ground. That's how it should be. His Highness is a very rational person. It's even a little scary. Time flows as usual. It's time to try to justify myself. I've adored Curtis for a long time. Earlier, Chloe saw the Duke in a newspaper where they talked about his exploits in the war. Then, she applied to be his adjutant to get the coveted position. She wanted to be closer, and so they became lovers. The status of a duchess suits the maiden. She takes it as a compliment, appearing behind. Curtis explains that his nephew considered her a good liar. He did not torment Abvance. He was simply worried that innocent subjects were being taken advantage of. Uncle can't handle romantic relationships. He wants to torment his nephew. Instead of a girl, a priest can be seen in the distance. It's time to leave and not linger. The young man is getting ready to go to the guests. The only thing he leaves out is how much he hopes that Curtis has found his love. And Abvance's words are true. He deserves the best people around him. Looking at Chloe, the blonde grins. Frederick knows better than anyone that this is not reality. High society is discussing the upcoming event. They are all waiting for the ceremony, a hasty wedding. The ladies laugh, suggesting that the bride is pregnant. This is indecent, but it may be the only real reason. All the church security is in the possession of the gentleman. Such measures are taken to ensure safety. Many people notice that among the bride's family members, there are only children, no parents. One of them turns around with displeasure. The lady is not alone in the hall. You should not talk so loudly, disturbing everyone else. The sister asks her brother to restrain himself. He is still unhappy because people irritate him incredibly. The girl is worried that their behavior will ruin Chloe's reputation. The girl with blonde hair will ruin it much more effectively. Lady Glintrant is, however, incredibly beautiful, and it becomes clear to the ladies why the king insisted so much on marrying his lordship. She is much better than the bride, and against such an appearance, the future wife will not win, no matter what her luxurious dress or makeup. They say that the doors to Queen Mildred's chambers are even open to her. She deserves it. One of the chief guards clears his throat and asks them to take their places. Finally, he will be able to look at the efforts of the bride. The wedding ceremony between Commander Curtis Siarnak and Ivanka Schenberg and Lieutenant Chloe Abvance is announced as the doors swing open, revealing two figures being asked to enter. A quiet whisper runs through the hall. Everyone is confused. At the wedding, the bride and her future husband both came in military uniform, gathered in genuine confusion. They do not understand why this has suddenly become possible. They are not in official attire. 3 days ago, when Chloe suffered because of the dress, she still presented her brilliant idea. Instead of brutal methods, they should change something. The obligatory decorations for the royal wedding are the crown and belt. The ceremony is real if these two attributes are present. The crown was sent by the prince's wife Beatrice. All that remains is to choose the outfits. The guards have their own uniform. The assistant is surprised, asking again to make sure she understood everything correctly. Of course, it would be necessary to pretend that his lordship, due to his great love for a woman, opposed such a thing. They would be able to completely get rid of the suspicion that the young man was interested in the throne. He would show that he was only interested in the army. The blonde thought for a moment, but still gave his approval. He agreed to wear a formal uniform for the wedding ceremony. Those gathered in the hall still couldn't get over their first impression. They still couldn't believe it. It's strange, but some admit that the uniform looks quite beautiful. No one expected that the crown of the late Queen Mildred would match the uniform so well. Before this, the ladies thought that the bride could not compare with Glintrant. It seems they were wrong. The girls seem to have two different auras emanating from them. The priest, James Ruther, has arrived to bless the marriage. He begins by asking if the two swear eternal love before Ivanaris and Granasad, the dragons who protect Ivanaris. The blonde man looks at the young lady. Eternal love is unrealistic. In the end, they will soon break up. But the girl has a beautiful face, so there will be no problem with remarriage. Then she will put on a suitable dress and be happy. Abvance's husband will be someone else, a man she will truly love. There is still a lot to endure before that day. The Duke swears before the priest, and the bride herself does the same. Before anything changes, there is still a lot to go through. The groom vows first, and then the bride. People notice that the blonde smiled easily. He is incredibly handsome. Many came just to look at Curtis. The young man understands that the next stage is coming. He leans closer to the girl. It seems to her that this is too much, but he does not show it. Even with the uniform, everything looks beautiful. There is something else. A box with a ring appears in his hands. It becomes clear to everyone, even without explanation, that before them is a divine flame. And as a sign of his love and infinite sincerity, the Duke gives this ring to Chloe. Until this moment, what was happening still seemed a little false, but the opposite was proven. Brother Abvance is the only one who doesn't understand people's reactions. He thought it was a common thing for a wedding, but in a normal situation, he would have given it to Schönberg. And by calling the girl by her last name, the Duke shows that the decoration is not connected with the marriage and belongs to the woman. The brunette carefully examines the hand. She really wants to ask why she needs a ring at all, smiling tensely. Curtis seems to ask to behave naturally and first accept the gift. The girl quickly learns to understand him, and in response asks, "Why did you give me this?" Previously, he was misunderstood. His skills are improving, and this cannot help but impress. The blonde suggests considering the jewelry as compensation for the damage. He is giving something so expensive, which means he will be very strange in the future. The priest nods and moves on to the main part of the ceremony. It's time to seal the marriage bond with a kiss. This was to be expected. After all, they are at a wedding. Chloe is still in a stupor. Her eyes are scared. The Duke kisses first. The ceremony is soon coming to an end. The ladies of high society cannot accept what will happen to Glintrant. She came relying on her pretty face. She did not suspect that Schönberg was in a romantic relationship. The time is not right. The aristocrats speculated that the marriage had been hastily concluded due to pressure from His Majesty the King. However, everyone saw confirmation of how genuine it was. There was marital harmony between the couple. After the ceremony, they left without even a banquet. For some reason, everyone thought that the newlyweds went to make passionate love. No one suspects that they ran to clean their teeth and mouth after the ill-fated kiss. The Duke has mysophobia, and he went and changed his shoes. What happened can't be called just a light fusion of lips. Chloe remembers how she was sucked into, the situation happened, and since nothing can be returned, the girl demands her honestly earned compensation. She is given consent. After the divorce, you will get what you want. For now, they have more important matters to attend to, which are best not postponed. The first day of becoming an archduchess is quite important. There were no servants in the Abvance household. New days are beginning for the general's subjects. Opening the curtain, the blonde points to the squad of maids and others standing outside the window. Everything is extremely simple. They will all obey Chloe, do whatever she wants. The number of subjects leaves a feeling of doom in the soul. It already feels burdened, alas, but 80% of the total number can easily be considered spies of His Majesty. It will not be easy. Caution above all. There is one servant who is one of the most important, Philip Delton, a very noble head butler. All the countless servants are under his command. He planned to control those in the royal palace. Life turned out differently. One fine evening, the gentleman was informed that he was leaving for the Archduchy of Schönberg. The king entrusted him with an important mission, ordering him to report on every move of Curtis. He thought it would be great if he could discover the young man's weakness, which he could then skillfully exploit. Before this, Delton had seen his master's schedule. He always had a very tight schedule, which included work and sleep. There was no hint of a dissolute life. Only, after a while, the situation began to change. A duchess appeared in the castle, who came from a poor family in the navy. Junior Lieutenant Montpiece, when asked about meeting the couple, explains that they are tired. The brunette did not want to see this turn of events. After all, he was ordered to watch every move of the arrogant gentleman. The young man, with a hint of worry, was asked to convey that the servants would be waiting for his arrival. The Archduchess, as proposed, will turn up her nose. Her status has skyrocketed. The maiden who dreamed of such a marriage has finally achieved her goal. Abvance will inadvertently make some mistake. In the face of countless rumors, it will be easy as pie. As Chloe was going down, she slipped. The butler smirked slightly. Quickly hiding his expression, he bowed his head. The maiden extended her hand. "It was nice to meet her. I don't know much, so I would be glad to have your help." The brunette wonders if the heroine doesn't know how to communicate with servants. But he shakes her hand anyway. It's an honor for him. Abvans knows what game they're about to play, and she asks if Delton had previously served the king of the country himself. There is a suggestion that the man combines work as a palace servant and a butler at the estate, which he quickly refutes. By order of His Majesty, Curtis began to serve only Schönberg. It was easier for him to not be torn between two fronts. A slight smile lights up her face again. The lady doesn't know anything. He doesn't have two bodies to work in two places at once. The questions are stupid, Chloe snorts. They act in front of her as if they are higher in status, which is unacceptable. Despite the fact that the couple was tired, the man insisted that they come out to greet each other. His displeased look shows what kind of problems the man might have. The situation is not simple. He has to bow his head and ask forgiveness for everything. He was unable to assess the situation from the perspective of the Archduchess and her husband. His behavior has changed dramatically. In order for everything to be okay, he will have to try to evade it. Due to his inattention, the subject did not pay due attention to fatigue, but he was very sad that he was unable to accompany the owners while they were at the estate before the marriage. Chloe is twisting everything. Were you curious to look at me? The man either did something wrong or is bragging about his incompetence. He is trying to justify himself, as if making Abvans feel guilty, while inside he is blazing with indignation at what is happening. From the very first meeting, the butler dares to evaluate the one who is higher in position, saying that she is a beautiful lady. Philip tries to tease with every word, offering a handshake at the beginning. The girl, obviously, tried to push him into making a mistake. Another excuse is cut short. The Duchess turns to her husband. He is very lenient in the mansion, but does not give his subordinates a second chance. Delton received a reprimand, but persists to the last. He had good intentions, because he just wanted to give a compliment initially. Chloe noticed the true expression on the subordinate's face when he shook her hand. He deliberately left a light comment. Listening to the butler, the brunette begins to think that the beautiful lady does not even deserve a kiss on the hand. He did not mean this. Only the Archduchess is more cunning. She must definitely end such an unpleasant conversation. The gentleman was very diligent in his attempts to catch the lady in bad manners. However, she is not so stupid. She understands perfectly well that the veiled insults are as if from a textbook of aristocratic etiquette. It turns out to be a three-way combo, but this is only if you look closely. The man thought that the lady was not such a beauty. Her origins were also low. She did not know the rules of etiquette. Being shameless, she began to live with the man before marriage. Philip tries to apologize, having long understood that he has found himself in a hopeless situation. The servants standing behind him begin to whisper suspiciously. He wanted to embarrass Abvans, but in the end, he took the blow on himself. Since the woman is so cunning and knows how to take advantage of her position, the brunette decides to retreat. He humiliates himself, falls to his knees, and begins to beg for forgiveness. He was so happy to arrive that he crossed the line. It's a pity that Delton will soon have a new owner. They want to fire him. There must be some loophole. After all, the king himself sent him. It's not so easy to get rid of him. Or is it possible? Because if the Archduchess doesn't follow the rules, then anything is possible. The blonde man calms his wife down, explaining that this is His Majesty's man. His status is important, but it doesn't change the fact that Chloe is offended if the butler is fired. It will be taken as a personal insult to her brother. But he ruined the first day of married life. There is nothing left to do but follow the order and apologize properly. All this will be done with the help of a service check. This is like a punishment for soldiers. The general often uses it in his unit. He asks his beloved if such a punishment is appropriate. In her opinion, it is weak. Any option other than dismissal would be quite good. The woman smiles ominously, suggesting execution. She served in the Navy and could accidentally shoot. The husband pretends to laugh, thinking his wife is witty. He will have to be patient so as not to anger the king. Delton is too slow. He should quickly rest his head on the floor before the consequences catch up with him. As he lowers himself, he simultaneously asks for forgiveness, doing it once again. He didn't want to endure such humiliation. Punishing her twice for the same thing wouldn't work. The Archduchess regrets it. It looks like she'll have to forgive, otherwise it won't work. Leaning towards Philip in a menacing voice, the lady assures him that if he does that again, the bullet will fly out before his head touches the floor. As a full apology, he will have to stand upside down for 3 hours. That would be the right thing to do. Hunger overtook the girl. She suggests going back to the castle. All the servants are asked to go prepare dinner and clean up a bit. Panic is in the butler's eyes. He is simply left alone, forced to count down 3 hours. It doesn't take long before the young lady is seated at the table. The drinks are excellent, and the snacks are sumptuous. All the stress has disappeared as if by magic. The newly minted Duchess can have fun while she has the opportunity. Things will get worse, and they must be prepared for it better than anyone else. It will be easier for the Duke. Chloe will sleep in the main building. Her room is right below her husband's room, located on the 2nd floor of the east wing of the estate. It's a bit cramped there. The spacious room is on the 3rd floor. It used to belong to the young man's mother, but he doesn't recommend it. There are no secret passages in the mansion. It was not intended for members of the royal family. The king, in fact, sent his brother into exile, so if an unexplained fire suddenly occurs, escaping from the 2nd floor will be easier than from the 3rd. It's stressful. After hearing this, the lady lost all appetite. Dinner is over. The maid appears next to her and is about to take her mistress to the bathroom. The wedding night begins, so everything will be prepared for rest. The girl freezes in horror. She completely forgot about it. It's incredibly dark around. The lady enters the room. The groom is within reach, is nearby. The ceiling is patternless, making it easy to find a hidden assassin. You have to live in such a place and come to terms with reality. His lordship distracts his wife from her thoughts. He calmly hands her a glass. The blonde decides to tease her a little, winking. He notices that a girl is entering his bedroom for the first time. He wants to kill the gentleman. He is terrible. Sometimes even too terrible. The beauty instinctively reaches for her belt, but in a panic, she realizes that she doesn't have a pistol there, which is usually always nearby. The Archduke bursts into a fit of laughter. After all, he finds it fun to amuse himself in this way. Such a reaction should have been expected from the wife. Otherwise, it would seem that the intimacy, the unreasonable irritation at the ceremony, the very exciting kiss, only excite Curtis. The husband will remain celibate even after marriage. There is nothing to rejoice about. The guy doesn't stop mocking. He pretends that he doesn't even know if it will be true. Abvan's dressed vulgarly, and even behaves like that. An ominous silence hung, and it is so clear that what happened was done in vain. What's striking is that the lady trusts the man. 3 months isn't quite enough to consider him a trustworthy boss. The beauty doesn't know how to explain it. She trusts not the human side, but the animal side. Throughout their time together, Abvans was constantly kept on overtime, even offered a fictitious marriage, and found themselves in many embarrassing situations that sometimes seemed too funny. The Archduke understands perfectly well that he will ruin his body in the hands of Glintrant, since he does something extremely reckless in the heat of the moment. Before this, the guy committed too many strange acts that he will always remember, because they are a part of him. Abvans is not averse to joking about this topic. If something were to happen, she would kick her husband so hard that he would not be able to dream of descendants, and then escape through the window. Rumors about this would spread very quickly, and the king would certainly hear about what happened. The blonde promises that nothing will happen, the conversation is over, and that's great. Chloe is getting ready to go to bed. They stop her, not allowing her to climb onto the bed. Even though it's night, the gentleman doesn't care. A finger points behind her. Stacks of papers have piled up on the desk to be sorted through. The maiden was wrong when she said she trusted her animal side. It's time to justify it. Let's get to work. The morning arrives completely unnoticed. Breakfast begins with fatigue. Chloe drops her head on the table without strength. For newlyweds, even 3 hours is not enough. For someone who has used Chloe from the first night, the assistant's words are too eloquent. The redhead asks to wait a little. She will bring light food so as not to overload the stomach. The gentleman really hit the bullseye by marrying her. Such a hard-working wife who carries out all orders you will not find anywhere else. She is a rare specimen. Her gaze stops at the man's hand. She sees that it is bandaged. It is obvious that he has a wound. She cannot help but ask if he is hurt. This is more like concern. or that there is a fear of bad rumors that may spread. It's better to start eating quickly so that there's still time for everything else. The maiden assumes there's poison in the food. They have more important things to do. A diplomatic banquet is about to take place. There will be aristocrats there. They'll have to fight off attacks from His Majesty. Besides other things, it's very important to write thank you notes in response to all wedding gifts. They are usually given in person, but Isabella sent one just because, so the vase can 100% be considered cheap, although it looks noble and beautiful. The lieutenant asks if she will be able to return to work. It is surprising that she is eager to do this right away. She needs to rest a little. There is a banquet soon. She needs to choose a dress with decorations. They will definitely be needed. As sad as it may sound, the girl doesn't understand expensive things. She'll have to choose what catches her eye. The Duke will pay for everything, so the elite shops on Fafton Street are open. After a while, the girl will learn to understand. There are a lot of animals in Curtis, and money is also involved. Thinking that such an essence manifests itself only in money and character, the lady soon realized how wrong she was. She underestimated her husband. Agatha Monpeace, the younger sister of Noel Monpeace, who serves in the Duke's detachment, cries to her aunt about the fact that the heartless Curtis has completely forgotten about her and married another, the Marquise of Flanders. Schönberg's older sister is tired of tears. Despite her irritation, the women try to explain that the two have already married. Nothing can be changed. The servant has already sent a man to the royal family, but the ice has not been brought. They will send another one. The brunette says that they will limit themselves to tea. The day is extremely long, and he has exhausted her quite a bit. The girl wipes away tears and asks if His Majesty will give them some ice. They say he is busy, probably up to his neck in state affairs. Flanders understands that this is complete nonsense. He is only maintaining an image, but in reality, other people are doing the work instead of him. It is all political squabbles, blackmail, which shows that supporting Curtis is completely unprofitable. Agatha is interested in the vase on the table. This little thing is nothing but trouble, but no one is going to explain anything to the beauty. The conversation turns to Schönberg again. It was time to give up. One disgrace in high society had already been successfully survived. Then, the blue-eyed one visited the royal guard, because she had a mission. Despite all his efforts, the older brother is of no help at all. He refuses to try. The lady guesses why the smart Noel did not try. It is better to turn his attention to something else. The marriage is concluded and time cannot be turned back. It will be easier for everyone if the situation changes. First of all, for the Marquise herself, the girl thinks. She will come up with some other way. Another stupid thought comes to mind. She needs to go and buy a piece of jewelry that is much better than the divine flame. Something that will be able to outshine the original gift without any doubt. Jumping up from her seat, the girl asks her aunt to go with her to Basileur, where they sold an original gift and where she might be able to find something better. The woman suggests going with her peers, but no one listens to her, saying that would be wonderful, and she could eat ice cream outside. That morning, a white sheet was hung out in the castle, which the Duchess noticed before leaving. The guard does not understand what it is, but the butler politely explains that before you is a symbol of his lordship's first wedding night. Chloe can't contain her surprise. She thought that in their century, they haven't exhibited anything like this for a long time. The Duke comes up from behind, as if he reads her mind, asking if Chloe thought that one signature would be enough. They needed other options. There was blood on the sheet. The deuce understood where the cut of unknown origin on the man's hand came from. The gentleman's wounds had nothing to do with her. She simply considered such a thing unnecessary, considering that everyone already knew about the relationship. The blonde is sure that they were not believed. The wife feels lost. The situation is not pleasant. Because the reaction follows. It is all because of the impulse. In fact, the king did not say anything about evidence. Everyone knew from the start that the marriage was rushed because of the pressure. Despite this, for some reason, Curtis donated his blood for the sheets. Chloe already had countless labels. She shouldn't try to bear it all on her shoulders. The two will be accompanied by Dubois. He was assigned to protect his lordship. Usually the boy has a different expression on his face. His gaze is full of contempt for the Duke, but not for Chloe. They were close in the guard. His wife has business in the boutique, so it is better to accompany her. The heroine smiles nervously, considering that it is too selfish to understand the accompaniment of Sergeant Ezra Dubois himself. She knows that the man can suddenly talk about a romantic relationship, which is not desirable for her. There is not only a couple in the carriage, but also sisters and a brother. The girl is trying to carefully start a conversation with her friend. It is clear that he is noticeably offended, which is absolutely right. But she did not think that everything would ruin their friendship so much, which had been going on for more than a month. Abvance had her reasons. They understand her. Her voice is still cold. She won't be able to share personal information. Iris points to the toy store and tries to say something. The older one covers her mouth, asking her to play a little quieter. Finally, the carriage arrived at the shop. Ezra opens the door and extends his hand, changing his behavior. The Duchess advises her not to beg for love later. She passes by. The sergeant does not cease to surprise her. He thinks that the wedding happened for love, which cannot be reality. Shouts are heard, turning around. The girl sees that the people on the street are extremely interested in her. Everyone wants to ask their questions, offers to guide and help. These are all journalists who were following her, but could not talk to her before this fortunate meeting. The Duchess manages to escape the clutches of those gathered. She did not expect this from them, although she should have understood exactly what she was getting into. In the store, the lady is met by the sixth heiress, Basileure, who asks to be allowed to kiss her hand as a greeting. Chloe had heard of such a custom, not suspecting that she would have to face it in person. Ezra comes forward to protect her highness. Such a thing is forbidden, in fact. The girl wanted to at least once more look at the divine flame that adorns her finger. The stone set into the ring was found by the heiress's father. It was kindly not sold because it was too small, but after processing it blossomed on the hand. It is nice to see something like this. The lady really likes jewelry, since she was ready to kiss Abvance's hand. Another girl offers to take her to the top floor. Her name is Camille Basileure. She is the younger sister of the heiress. She is engaged in handmade goods on the third floor. Having gone up, the heroine gasps. The main exhibition hall is the pride of the boutique. Everything around sparkles, and something like this cannot but look flawless. The woman should have visited the Duchess first, so she was very surprised when she received a letter in the morning. Chloe admits, "I don't really understand jewelry, so I decided to look at jewelry of different quality." To understand the difference, the beauty wants to see everything in real time. That's the easiest way. Basileure admits that they don't have anything of low quality. The store makes only the highest quality items, and the attention to detail in high-quality jewelry also helps. The maid who says this knows for sure that extra attention is necessary, since everything turned out this way. It is better to inspect all the goods, since they will be difficult to find elsewhere. Most of them are presented in a single copy. The first thing falls into your hands, and without holding back a sigh of admiration, the Duchess provokes you to tell her everything. Basileure begins a monologue that is easy to tire of. She is so talkative that this is further confirmation of how obsessed she is with jewelry. The entire area contains high-quality goods, but even the best product cannot mean anything if the price does not satisfy the buyer. Because, first and foremost, aristocrats intend to buy what suits them. The Duchess doesn't know what to choose. She blurted out something she shouldn't have. What was said can't be undone. But she really does feel a bit sorry for the money. She doesn't understand how in her right mind she could spend millions on something that simply attracts the eye, but nothing more. The maid standing nearby reminds that, before going out, the mistress is obliged to pick something out. In such a place, the mind practically does not work. The sister is formidable. It is better to spend money while such an opportunity presents itself. At least one should not skimp on jewelry. Having the kind of things that Chloe has is already a terrible tragedy. Even as a duchess, she continues to wear dull colors. It would be a shame to choose the wrong necklaces and bracelets. Abvance previously said that she buys brown things to show concern for her youngest. The two are arguing openly. Camille can't help but grin. Realizing her mistake, she immediately apologizes. What's happening reminded her of her relationship with her family. Both Basileures kneel down and start apologizing, while Chloe feels awkward. Please stand up. It is clear that it was not done with bad intentions. Despite the fact that attempts to calm her down were successful, The young lady still changed several times. The girl became interested in the necklace that Camille herself wears. It is attractive. Basilar sees that his sister is frozen in a stupor and explains for her that it is not for sale. The Duchess understands. She thought that it was for sale. Large jewelry is beautiful, but constantly wearing it is hard labor. So this is the reason. Camille thinks for a moment and then says that the necklace is her father's work. She can show his collection. Chloe will not mind. The main thing is that there are no problems with this. Making sure that everything is fine, she agrees. The brunette carefully examines the collection. She is fascinated. The jewelry is beautiful and cute. Even children can wear them. They used to sell them, but due to the new store policy, they had to temporarily suspend sales. The cute style suits the lady. After the man's death, the sisters were unable to produce anything like this for the last 10 years. One of the tiaras is made from a special stone that they stopped supplying only 5 years ago. Basilar asks if the lady would mind hearing the story of the tiara with the jewels. What's happening is a bit burdensome. It's worth leaving as soon as possible. The story is unnecessary. The decoration is beautiful. It's a pity it's not for sale. A sarcastic voice is heard. For someone who doesn't understand, such a product will seem normal. Behind stands Lady Monpiece. The lieutenant knows only one descendant of this family. He recalls a conversation. The young man has a younger sister, Agatha, who loves the Duke. In front of her is the one who is unrequitedly in love. Basilar tries to resolve the situation. She suggests they step aside and talk. The blue-eyed girl explodes with anger. She clarifies whether the brunette is considered more important. The sergeant steps forward to ask him to stop the irrational behavior. Second Lieutenant Monpiece is quite an outstanding person. He observes the rules of etiquette, does his job well, and is very polite. It seems that his sister is completely lost in his background. Chloe was considered Dubois' fiancée, she smirks, showing the ring. The girl snorts, insisting that she didn't know who was standing in front of her. Pure pretense. On the way to the boutique, one could already hear many different stories. Outside, there are a lot of store employees and journalists. Having studied the facial features, the beauty understands that the lieutenant's sister is very young. She is not even 20 years old. There is no need to quarrel with a child. After all, in front of her is the girl who destroyed her many years of one-sided love. Schönberg understands why they are angry with her. She openly declares that there is no point in arguing instead of agreeing. Agatha shouts that the woman has taken a lover. She hints at Ezra. He also thinks that what is happening makes no sense. The girl knows that Dubois introduced his colleague to his family as his future wife. Everyone understands that he was the one who did not want to get married. 2 months ago, the whole guard was in a bar. Ezra was whining that his parents would not leave him alone. One of the guards smirked just before he threw out an idea. He thought it would be a good idea to lie to the family. Chloe was the perfect candidate. She had nothing and was in the Navy. She could easily save the situation. For even daring to think about such a thing, almost immediately everyone else pounced on him. Surprisingly, the woman gave her consent. She will not be invited anywhere. There will be no problems with this, so it makes sense to do what the young man himself thinks is right. Ezra's house was turned upside down thanks to all this. He had free time for several years before the wedding. As a reward, Leah received dozens of boxes of high-quality cookies, which she loved. The sisters recall how they enjoyed the gift. Dubois tries to justify his past. Lady Monpiece did not know this, but it was all nothing more than a joke while spending time in a bar. She does not believe it, believing that no one would agree to such a thing, especially for cookies. The lieutenant's speed can only be amazed. Just 2 months ago, she was dating a sergeant, then betrayed him and immediately got married. The situation is complicated. Chloe is closing her eyes to the thought, do I really look so terrible in the eyes of others? Some misunderstanding arose. The blue-eyed woman is amazed by what is happening. The woman is walking around with her lover immediately after marriage. Curtis is aware of this because he assigned the young man to guard her. Most likely, he does not know about his wife's promiscuity. It's time for Chloe to say everything she thinks. Firstly, she only has an eye too. They were close friends, but she would never date the brat. If she got involved with him, she would experience the collapse of the ego, and this is unacceptable. Secondly, The girls should remember one detail. They are still in the guard's detachment. No one has canceled the titles. Agatha is only a junior sergeant, and Schoenberg is a lieutenant. That is, a boss. She whispers that she is on vacation, so she is simply the count's daughter. Even so, the lady knows what she can answer if they are not on duty. She is a duchess. And again, much higher, confirmation from Montpiece will not be required. She is not part of the Ivanez or Schoenberg families. She may not believe in anything, but this does not cancel anything. It is possible to notice in time that the beauty seems to be starting to cry. They ask her if it is because of the Duke. It seems that she really likes the man. Chloe is not trying to bring the girl to tears. He is simply not worth the tears. She is still very young. The best solution would be to go about their business. Hierarchy isn't that important to the lieutenant. It doesn't play any role. But if we follow what the girl thinks, then it's Schoenberg who's the more important person, Agatha notes. Basilar is no longer any good. The owner apologizes. She should have gotten rid of the jewelry a long time ago. Camille values the memory of her father, but everyone knew something like this would happen someday. It's worth checking if the most important person in the boutique is really her name is Aunt Marie. A woman who is at the very top of the list of aristocrats that Curtis values comes in. It is none other than the Marchioness of Flanders, the king's younger sister. It was not for nothing that Agatha was so fearless. Earlier, the girl had made her way because a superior lady was standing behind her. She declared that she would go to the Duchess to show her where the crayfish spend the winter. Montpiece did not have time to stop her. Her Highness asked to speak with Camille. She asks for forgiveness. There's nothing to apologize for since they haven't visited Basilar in a long time. Curtis appears out of nowhere. He knows that old acquaintances are allowed to do a lot, but he wants to remind them that there's no point in crossing the line anyway. The older brother should keep a better eye on the girl so that she doesn't ruin anything else. Noel grumbled that the master would be trash if he left his wife alone after their wedding night. The blonde thought that there was no need to apologize, while emphasizing the words, sister. Usually such a warm word would never have escaped his icy lips. They are about to go upstairs, shouts are heard, where, obviously, the Duchess is accused of agreeing to something for the sake of cookies. The Duke wants to see what will happen next. Agatha starts talking about how the lieutenant recently met with Ezra, and almost immediately jumped into bed with Curtis. The story about this is known in the Guard. The two were not dating. It was just a proposal during a drinking party that everyone was at. Montpiece was there too, so he knows everything. The blonde laughs. Since they hid such a funny story from him, he is 100% going to cut his salary. The man is against it. The conversation between the two girls becomes more and more interesting. The younger sister cannot calm down, finding new reasons. Even in the current situation, the lady takes care of Agatha. And when she notices that she is crying, she almost immediately tries to calm her down. Marie asks how long they will stand and watch, when suddenly her niece calls her. The brunette comes out and calmly reminds him that she had previously asked not to call her aunt in public. Chloe is a little confused, but quickly gathers her courage and greets the Marquise. The girl served in the army for a long time, so it is clear that she does not have a good understanding of etiquette. There are problems. In her head, the girl reproaches herself for her inattention. She should have guessed as soon as Agatha appeared. The blue-eyed girl squeals, pointing to other jewelry, and explains that the lady likes such cheap things, and also that she treated her badly, which is completely unacceptable. It turns out that Marie is also a cheap woman. Basilar did not say that the things presented were a gift from the previous king in his youth. He liked such items, and thus he wanted to show his daughter that they are also beautiful. Curtis is activated in time. He wants to give his wife all the things from the store because his older sister wore them. There are several tiaras and necklaces that the previous ruler ordered for Princess Marietta a long time ago. The puzzle, which was missing one important piece, is coming together. The Duchess understands why Basilar did not want to show her jewelry collection. It seems that the Marquise is on the king's side because she does not want to spoil her relationship with Curtis. The tiara remained on Leah's head, and she tried it on. The Marquise smiled. Her father sometimes forgot how old she was, and wearing such a small piece of jewelry at 20 was no longer becoming. There was a precious stone left in it that could not be bought for any amount of money. The former owner of the boutique loved this little thing, so the daughters remained as careful as possible. Camille is still not skilled in gold carving, so this is another reason. The lady rarely wears precious stones at her age. Curtis decides to take advantage of the moment and officially introduce his wife, Chloe Reed David Schoenberg. Fate itself brought them together. All the while, the brunette continues to fan herself, although the room is not at all hot. Agatha, who had been standing quietly to the side for some time, without making a sound or showing any sign, runs forward again. Blue-eyed shows her despair through her voice. She does not understand why she was abandoned and married to another woman. The Duke naively thought that her manners had improved after the incident in Carrion Hall, but she is still frivolous, nothing new. At one point, the man even considered making Mompies his archduchess. Judging by her reckless behavior, it's good that he changed his mind. Otherwise, it wouldn't have ended well. He didn't leave her to marry her, and her status didn't affect his sympathy in any way. The girl tries to explain herself to the last. She really loves the young man, even joined the royal guard for him. He lowers his voice, asking who asked her about this. Unable to bear it, Agatha starts crying and runs away. The ice cream will have to be put off until next time. The girl's older brother stops his sister. Since the sergeant will remain near the Duke, he asks her to take her leave in order to calm her down. Finally, the boutique becomes calm. Surprisingly, the lady missed such peace, which was easily stolen from her. Marietta apologizes. She didn't know what would happen, and if she had known, the situation could have become even worse. Chloe introduces her sisters, Leah and Iris. They were standing next to her the whole time, but their names hadn't been called yet. Iris resembles her relatives on her mother's side, and Leah, like the Duchess, is on her father's side. The Marquise apologizes again, only this time to Abvans. She is thinking of giving the lady the tiara that is on her head, but it's not worth it. Her younger brother will apologize instead. It's the first day after the wedding. The wife is better off trying to protect her pride. In return, they want to ask something else from the woman. When everything is over, the two go to rest and have a snack. They got out of a difficult situation with difficulty. The girl is happy that she can relax while eating ice cream. The sisters are accompanied by Ezra. The Marquise was successfully escorted before she left. Warned about the meeting in Eleanor, Chloe should be prepared. Consider that I saved her today. It's obvious that the heroine has never attended Eleanor's events. This is a famous salon created by female officers. In addition to attending, the girl will have to move up one step and become an organizer. Lady Mompiece's attack was expected. Even Flanders herself expected it. Being in high society is a real headache. There are too many problems to overcome before anything changes. The young man smirks. The wife doesn't see anything funny and asks why they're looking at her like that. The blonde man is offended that they think badly of him, as if he's a crazy person who only wants to criticize someone. He's not particularly kind and never has been. Virgo calls a man. She really liked the ice cream and wants to pack some to go. For this, she will need ice, and this will be a little problematic. She does not want to say in front of the Duchess, but the expenses are slightly higher than the bar. Leaning towards her husband, the heroine explains that she doesn't know the culture of high-ranking aristocrats. She wonders if it's okay to take something like that with her. She actually wanted to send some ice cream to the Marquise, not eat it herself. The blonde man can't concentrate on anything. They're too close. When we met, it seemed that the woman needed something cool. It seemed that she was too hot, and he felt sorry for her. The gentleman asked to send a gift to Flanders and add some ice. A lot could be sent. Ice cream is difficult to store, but the lady has a dungeon with ice. Turning to his wife again, Curtis asks her to sit down in her place. The lady thought that it was not quite polite to speak while standing, but that was not the point. She was trying to find the reason and suggested that she smelled bad, like the scent of the perfume that Julia had applied still remained. A strange situation. The man says that this is also not the most pleasant thing. His facial expression is distorted. The gentleman is disgusted. It's surprising how he shared the same bed with the girl, since he is so disgusted even to be close to her. Ice cream is a nice gesture, but the debt could have been repaid in some other way. My sister's fortune isn't the greatest. The Duchess doesn't know because clothes and jewelry could be considered a direct bribe, and perhaps the princess's tastes wouldn't be satisfied. It would be wonderful to at least eat something delicious. The maiden showed herself to be caring. She even asked to send ice. The jewelers in the store also could not stop praising her. The beauty smiled. This was because of the Duke's order, because he handed over 120 million in cash, asking to give back everything that his wife's hand touched. This will be remembered for a long time. Basileur had to sell half of Camille's collection, even her jewelry. Chloe is happy with the situation, although her face says otherwise. In the end, she incredibly likes the items she chose. They all suit her new status and image. The blonde man stops the teasing, asking if he only likes the jewelry, or him too. The silence and ominous smile make it clear that he doesn't like the Duke, despite the fact that the gentleman has a fair amount of money, and what he spent was clearly a waste of money. The order is a complete madness. There is too much jewelry. The man decides to reveal one detail. After the divorce, he will not keep the things for himself. They all remain with Chloe. The mood immediately changes. The heroine promises to spend diligently and get rid of a large amount of money. It remains to deal with clothes, after all. Walking around in dull colors is considered wrong for a duchess. This time, everything will be done according to her measurements. This time, Abvance will not feel awkward about spending. Smirking, she states, "I will show you what true extravagance is." Her Highness's wishes turned out to be very specific. She knew what would suit her and what would not be worn. The Duke sits aside and watches everything. The picture is funny. The girl no longer looks like herself from the jewelry store, where she was quite withdrawn. She just often ordered clothes for her sisters. They couldn't wear the same clothes to school. Children often quarrel about this, so they needed variety. The girl wore a military uniform 24/7 just to boost her own opinion. Iris stands out. She was loved in their area, but others constantly gave her cold looks. Everything reached the point of absurdity, where she was constantly being refused admission to schools. In order not to suffer from attacks, the girl was obliged to dress decently. The gentleman recalls that in the duchy there is a personal tutor, a home tutor. The problem can be solved if he takes on the teaching. The brunette feels uncomfortable, despite Schönberg's nobility. Usually, the relatives of an older lady who has married do not live in her new house. With a salary of 40,000, the girl has been coping with the task of raising children all this time. It is surprising that the lady spent money on her family first and foremost. His lordship pretends not to think twice, saying that the blue fabric looks great, it was delivered from Tavai, a terrible word that doubles the price of the goods. It suits the lady, so it will be bought. The woman herself said that she would show extravagance. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. The Duchess has a good build. She is tall and slender, so the fabric will suit her very well. The designer quickly makes sketches on paper. The sleeves of the dress will be long and flowing, which will highlight the features. The lieutenant wears a military uniform all the time, and it would seem that she shouldn't be so keen on shopping, but she enjoys it to the fullest, most likely ordering clothes for her sisters. She often thought about what would suit her, and now that time has come. It is unlikely that there is any regret in the heart that the maiden gave up her share because of caring for the younger ones. Watching the childish joy that sparkles in the eyes, the man begins to increasingly understand that he did the right thing when he brought his wife to the boutique. While the hero was in a state of shock, Chloe managed to receive a bill for all the purchases that had been made. She looks proud of herself. All that remains is to buy a house. Curtis remembers that he needs to figure out where the family lives. The Duchess's home is dangerously located near the road. The sisters can temporarily live elsewhere. The brunette insists that the parental home not be destroyed. The parents can come at any moment, although all this time they have been living in another country, irresponsibly forgetting about the children, Schönberg explains. The new estate will become famous. They will visit you there too. It's not just the parents who didn't even take care of anything. It would be funny to understand that after the divorce, the lady lives in the place that her ex-husband bought. Curtis turns away. He nods and indicates that he understands the situation. A noticeable change in mood. The man doesn't make any reservations. Perhaps he's starting to get tired of pointless conversations with the lieutenant. This is expected. Such a man is unlikely to have ever waited for a woman until she finished shopping. This is his first time, just like Chloe's shopping. A beautiful dress is visible in the reflection in the mirror. It's the first time a girl has ever worn something of such high quality and expensive, but she feels uncomfortable, probably because thoughts are running through her head about how the thing doesn't belong to her. After all, it's just a temporary measure. A voice is heard from behind. Curtis thinks that the dress suits his face, which means there is no point in continuing to stare in the mirror forever. He does not turn around. Propping his chin on his hand, the hero looks away, as if trying to avoid eye contact. Chloe still feels a little awkward that she hasn't worn something like this before. If you don't look at the price tag, the fabric is nice and comfortable, pleasant on the body. For a duke, such clothes are the price of chewing gum for an ordinary person. You can't get used to luxury. After a while, there will be a divorce. Even though the woman got married, she still didn't become a real duchess. This marriage is just a show. Soon, she will have to leave the stage and return to her true self. The girl doesn't want to be the only one who feels broken, so she tries not to attach any importance to anything. There is silence in the carriage. The gentleman's facial expression does not make it clear what exactly he is thinking about. Even if it seems that he is thinking about his wife, he again has the same expression as usual. The man is confusing. The maiden managed to fulfill her role, but this will not happen every time. You need to make more efforts to avoid falling into a trap. Not all the people from high society that he will meet along the way will be as easy as with Agatha. Women will be especially picky. The young man reasons as if he himself was in Chloe's place. It is better not to get involved with Lieutenant Dubois for some time. It doesn't matter what happened before, because what was is long gone. It will be troublesome if a Virgo has unreasonable relationships with other men, especially with those who previously meant something to her. She should understand this without any explanation. The brunette still tries to explain, they are just friends. It is not such a big deal that people start gossiping about it. Most of the guard members know the story about it. The blonde understands this. Despite this, asks not to make the situation even more absurd. He notes that there is friendship between a man and a woman. The heroine thinks that this is nonsense. A moment later, she understands that the young man did not know this because he is an outcast. He does not know what the lady is thinking, but it becomes unpleasant from just one look. Monpiece is still trying to calm his younger sister down. She is sobbing and saying that she understood the situation back when they made a woman an adjutant. That is why she wanted to be there. The hero suggests surrendering. Even Mother is already getting a headache from this. Agatha refuses to marry, and therefore the lady cannot sleep. Insomnia can be solved by taking medicine, but marriage to the Archduke cannot be solved even with the help of medicine. The girl loves Curtis with all her heart, but her feelings do not even reach the tips of his fingers. Remembering the conversation with Chloe, the blue-eyed girl is once again convinced that she does not even love her husband. Her attitude towards him even resembles a certain degree of contempt. 3 years ago, the girl managed to find out that the gentleman did not feel anything for her, but she continued to humiliate himself. It is completely wrong to talk about something like this. The girl considers herself a sincere person. Jumping out of the carriage, she runs away. They will not chase her. As soon as she gets a little hungry, she will immediately return back. Cooling her head will certainly not interfere with the matter. A wave of anger builds up inside her, which is harder to contain. The little girl hates absolutely everyone. Her brother, who remembers the events of 3 years ago, the woman who got married despite not liking Curtis, her mother, who is pushing for the wedding, and the Duke himself. The heroine has no intention of marrying an ordinary man from the street. She is fed up with what is happening, so stuck in her thoughts. The beauty did not understand how she ended up on some abandoned street. Running wherever her eyes looked, she found herself in a very gloomy place. It's quite dangerous there. Agatha wants to look for a way out when she notices a woman in the window whose clothes are very similar to those of a noblewoman. It is none other than Isabella Glintrant. Strangely, she is not going to sort out the situation. Her feelings are more important. The rest is not important. The Duchess is enjoying her situation to the fullest. She doesn't know how long she can live like this, but she will enjoy the present moment. She was calm. As she remained, the honeymoon time flew by quickly, but things after that were no longer so peaceful. Many people whispered, realizing that the marriage was meant to enhance the lady's status. A bad aura emanated from everyone who was lower in rank. But what was worse was that there was a person higher up, namely Admiral Victor, who promised to arrange a sweet life for the newlyweds. The knights' reactions were divided into three categories. Those who pitied Chloe, believing that she had been threatened, as no one in their right mind would marry a tyrant. Those who thought that the lady had fallen sincerely in love, and those who believed that she was trying to climb the career ladder, this opinion being the most widespread. Dubois arrived at a time when all the points about what had actually gone into Abvance's head and why she had suddenly decided to get married and was even acting like she was in love were being discussed once again. The voice made the duo jump. They begin to apologize because they understand how bad the current situation looks. He lowers his voice when he says that they must definitely tell the commander of the third squad what jokers the guys are, so that they will find an appropriate punishment for their bad behavior. A final warning is given. If they open their mouths to say anything again, I will definitely complain, and life in the guard will no longer be so fun. Two of them run away. They still don't understand why Chloe even conspired with the head of the brigade to stop all conversations. They ask Dubois how the woman is doing in general. He seemed to be accompanying her. They wonder if they talked about their relationship. The brunette explains that they really didn't discuss anything like that, and calmly asks his partner to start eating instead of continuing the interrogation. The thoughtfulness doesn't last long. The hero comes to the conclusion that Chloe can organize her own personal escort. She is also part of the royal couple. The commander of the second squad doesn't know whether the girl will do this, and if so, then he will have to find out the information directly again. The only thing that is known is that Abvance was summoned by Admiral Victor. He will sort everything out. Ezra has become noticeably heated, all because his friend continues to talk about things that do not arouse the slightest interest. The acquaintance simply sees how well Chloe is doing, and this is only after she got married. In the morning, the girl arrived in a precious car with magical stones. She always scolded the brigadier general, and then she just went and married him. The situation is absurd. Besides, she is part of the royal family, as if this is what she wanted. The reason is not so small. At first, Dubois was also surprised. But first of all, he wanted to congratulate his friend. He wanted to congratulate her, hoping that if later he found a girl that he really liked, his mother would not mind because of how everything turned out. Despite his thoughts, Ezra wasn't entirely sure whether the marriage was right. At a wedding where the bride was supposed to be the most beautiful, Chloe wore a uniform as a political statement. And then, the most intimate situation in the bedroom was also revealed to the whole world by hanging the sheet outside. It was clear that because of her choice, the girl did not receive any respect. There are many cases where people marry a bad person without knowing it, through deception, but Chloe knew that as an adjutant, she had suffered a lot while she was next to Curtis. The woman saw all sides of him, understood that he was terrible. Dubois repeats to his friend that he really didn't know anything. It seems the girl kept the relationship a secret. These words are too strange to apply to such a strange, inorganic couple. Earlier, the heroine even asked that they not demand a story about her love story from her later. It seemed that they were close, and she just wanted to clarify whether everything was okay. There was a resentment lurking in her soul, a feeling as if Ezra had fallen beyond the line, although it seemed that they were close. Finding out what was going on in Chloe's head was an impossible task, which would not bring any meaning. The sergeant felt that his friend was so far away, so he acted distant and awkward. He shouldn't have done this because their relationship had worsened significantly. Even when the Duchess confronted Agatha and was ignored because of Dubois, he couldn't do anything. Curtis appeared like a prince on a white horse. He asked to escort Leah and Iris. He was kicked out because he and the Duchess needed personal space. The red-haired man was even more lost in his thoughts, until Lady Sarah came up to their table and offered to sit down. Of course, she wouldn't eat because she had already done so earlier. Only after that did she come. She came to ask about something. The girl knows that she is close with the Archduchess. She does not want to ask again, but she has a personal problem. It is about the woman's mother. She would like to ask to invite Her Highness to a meeting. She understands that she is asking for too difficult a task. The brunette tries to assure that everything is fine. The sergeant intervenes in the conversation. Schönberg, as is known, declines all invitations. He asks to tell Mother that the matter is not only about her, but this is indeed true. Each of them and their mothers were also refused. The reason behind this was from the very beginning. Despite the situation, the hero does not take himself too seriously. He declares that he is still Chloe's best friend. So if he can arrange a meeting, he will definitely hand over the case to Lady Sarah. He does not mind spending time over tea with 3 families at his home. It is immediately obvious that he likes his colleague. Dubois doesn't want to continue the conversation, gets up to leave. Without even saying goodbye, there is no excuse for this. He is just a little upset and stubborn. The Schönberg couple stands before the admiral. Victor wishes to convey the king's message. The man demands that a housewarming party be held, preferably a very festive one, at which all the highest nobles, including the entire royal family, will gather. The Duchess will personally organize it. Until now, the main event had been the 28th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Glintrant. But since the proposal for an engagement between the families had been completely thwarted, it was necessary, at least for the sake of decency, to hold a banquet anyway, making it dignified. The girl has become part of the royal family, so this is part of her duties. There are 2 more experienced representatives than Victor, and the crown princess is ill, the Duke smirks, suggesting that His Majesty made her suffer. The lady isn't sure if it's okay to say that, but the admiral doesn't even bat an eye. There's also the Marchioness, but she's been assigned another job, and that's not a good sign either. There's no point in talking about that either. They're talking as if they're on the same wavelength. The admiral understands Curtis's situation. The boys should do everything as it should be. It was the gentleman who brought Schönberg to the naval detachment. Formally, it was he who introduced the 2 of them. The situation before His Majesty is terrible. There is nothing to talk about. The Duke jokes about how his life is in harmony, but this is not true. The gentleman, when he enters the office, always stands on the snow-white tiles, as if everyone else is smeared. This is only one reason why he is considered strange. When he enters with other people, he stands exactly 2 tiles away, even with Chloe. If they have to show His Majesty how much they love each other, they shouldn't show so much distance. Otherwise, it will end badly. Approaching his wife, the blonde smiles nervously. As expected, the old general cannot be fooled. He reminds that his life depends on this couple. The lieutenant got a wonderful husband. As soon as they left, he suggests trying to hold hands, for a start. And this will do. The heroine feels disgust, but still agrees. Everyone around whispers, but thinks that this is normal because they are newlyweds. It's because of the admiral's advice. The problem is the distance. The man didn't even fully realize it. It's better to follow at least some kind of rapprochement strategy while they are inside the palace, so maybe people will start to trust everything more. The heroine nods, but there is another problem. The blonde man's expression is terrible. If someone notices him with such an expression, it seems it would be better to just leave. Rumors of discord will appear after only 2 weeks of marriage. He says that it is pleasant to hear and immediately pulls his hand back. The general reported that the council wants her dismissal. I wonder if the lady is interested in this. She understands that this is impossible. His Majesty knows how to act correctly. He intends to remove the girl from the position of adjutant. He used all his strength for this and continues to try further. Despite this, the man failed. The heroine is reminded of the contract she signed when she took office. Something that is hard to forget. It was a slave contract, under which they paid a lot of money in exchange for the inability to leave. Before Chloe's arrival, it was difficult to find someone. The admiral even received a seal. Authority cannot be challenged even by the king himself. There are not many options left by which the girl can be removed from office. The gentleman must obtain permission from the young lady's immediate superior, who is Schönberg himself. The blonde looks happy. There's no point in being sad, after all. He managed to cause trouble for the king. The heroine recalls a conversation with the admiral. At first, it seemed to her that he was protecting her. While she doesn't go to work, a lot has happened. It will take time to cope with it. His lordship acts as if he will benefit from this. It is understandable that he is pleased to go against the will of the ruler, but in fact, it is more profitable for him to remove the Duchess from office and pretend that he listens to Ivana's. It would be correct to do everything the other way around. From the moment Abvans took her new name, she has been doing everything possible to fulfill the responsibilities that this name imposes on her. Before she took part in this adventure, she calculated everything that could happen to her. It is clear that she was ready to lose her place. The woman is asked to be quiet. There are a lot of extra ears in the castle, and one should watch one's language carefully. With displeasure on his face, the guy breaks away from his wife. He himself asked her to be more careful, and after that, he pretends that they had an argument. His steps are quick and heavy, as if he has lost control of himself. The lieutenant tries to follow the same principle, but she accidentally trips. The woman falls, but gets up almost immediately. While blaming the gardeners, the woman suggests continuing to walk. The general wanted to extend his hand to help her get up, but did not have time. The young man asks if they see him as trash. His expression shows sadness, which is not at all typical for him. He has been thinking about this for some time, but his wife is thinking short-sightedly. She asks for forgiveness and asks for an explanation in more detail so that she can improve. The blonde tried to say something completely different, but perhaps for the first time, he couldn't formulate his thoughts. For some reason, he felt as if something was stuck in his throat. It was unpleasant to continue speaking. It was causing some confusion. Chloe had previously wondered why they were trying to protect her instead of throwing her to the king like a bone while they were preparing for the next step. This was not true. The Duke would not want to do this. He was asking if it was worth saying such a thing in front of other people. In fact, there is no one around. Since childhood, Schönberg suffered from attacks by killers and began to distinguish when someone is nearby. I can leave a young lady at any moment, but if the girl knows that he has definitely not done this, she should not talk about it. This makes you want to get angry. The man calmly remarks that he hopes that the adjutant will not repeat the same mistake in the future. He has ruined everything. He feels strange, which is unusual for him. The expression of hostility on Chloe's face is unnerving. She seems upset. Following him, the lieutenant suddenly says that she has something important. She addresses the Brigadier General. Although she has never called him that before, she hints at the third clause of the marriage contract, according to which she must always be obeyed. At the moment when the man showed his displeasure, the girl was about to yell, but she remembered how her sister had once advised her to calm her temper a little, which was already difficult, and yet, if you kill your character, then she herself will die, so it's even better to kill your opponent. Finishing her thought, the maiden advises Curtis to consider her as his superior and respect her as much as possible. It seems that this was a condition of marriage with the officer. She is not mistaken in this, so he will still have to obey. The man is ordered to take 2 full steps forward. He is more obedient than Chloe thought, but he will have to look up too much, and this is not entirely convenient. To continue a productive conversation, the lady suggests sitting on a bench so that she can look down. We have to answer questions that, in a sense, are completely meaningless, because the chain is still unraveling. The general has been serving in the detachment for 12 years, longer than many of those under his command. I'm interested in whether the man knows how long it takes to train a new recruit. 2 months have passed. They got married only 10 days ago, not that long ago. The girl hasn't yet been able to master all the rules of high society, considering that she has never been a member of it. Her becoming a duchess was unexpected, and the next 2 months can be considered a training period. And it is known that newcomers make many mistakes during the training period. There is nothing wrong with that. Because training takes time, Chloe admitted that she made a mistake, but it was worth explaining only once. Curtis apologizes. The moment is exciting. The maiden finally hears such pleasant words coming from the Duke's lips. The one who wrote this agreement is a good man. She finishes off the Brigadier General, asking if he loves her. What is the point of treating his beloved worse than the recruits? The man somehow managed to become such a person, to climb to his position, which is surprising. If he has absolutely no patience, it seems that his mood has worsened in this case. The girl can make a return. She ominously shows not the ring that is on her ring finger. Smiling for just a moment, the young man explains that if it were possible, he would have listened to His Majesty's words long ago. The words are informal, and this is a deviation from the script. The story has gone too far. The Duke suggests ending. He was wrong in the way he behaved due to his carelessness. With a sudden movement, the young man pulls the young lady's body closer to him. He asks her not to move, because there is a person standing behind them who is watching the conversation. Curtis again asks for forgiveness. This time, he gives a clearer explanation. The words upset him a little and made him behave inappropriately. Either the young man is sincere, or this is just a fake. To play his role well, the blonde understands that his wife was right. However, he cannot help but notice that wasting one of 3 opportunities like this is extremely stupid. In the future, a better option may present itself. Pulling away from the tickling, the girl imitates her sister Leah. She was always told that if you keep something for too long, it will turn to shit. The Archduke laughs slightly. He pulls Chloe closer again. This is the reason why he can't throw her straight into the clutches of His Majesty. It is impossible to leave the Duchess in front of Ivaness, who will be attacked after a few words, be it the Admiral or the authority of the Master himself. We will have to use all available cards. It sounds as if Abvance will be protected, but this is impossible. Before calmly explaining himself, the young man swears to one thing. No matter what his wife thinks, he is not going to throw her to his brother as bait and end everything. He would rather go to Glintrant than act so vilely. His facial expression changes to surprise. It would seem that these two are separate from each other. Except for the mission, they have nothing in common. Similar to the words he would say to another person, the Brigadier General understood what the main one wanted to say. This can be considered unearthly happiness, especially in this case. They are still being looked at, only there is more than one person standing in the bushes now. The man suggests that he also kneel before the Duchess, so that rumors will spread that he is crazy about his wife. He might stain her clothes, but for some reason, this no longer bothers him. This is also due to impulse. Chloe is to blame for everything. The young man fell for all the provocations. Although they were all quite childish, she hooked him again, completely overflowing with emotions. He even hugged the girl. All this for the first time for them, which makes him feel a pleasant sensation, but also excitement. It was time to slowly rise. The lady still could not believe what was happening. Apparently, he was imbued with Victor's teachings. Since everything was learned, nothing stood in the way of applying everything exactly as the situation required. They are already leaving, but since the situation allows, the blonde takes the lady by the hand again. The fact that they are a married couple is a well-known fact. It would be silly to be embarrassed. The heroine could at least pretend that everything is fine. The young man is also trying. He hates holding someone's hand. The Archduke must maintain his dignity, but it is much more important for him to show that everything is fine in their relationship. The brunette resigns herself and begins to increase her pace. She decided to take the shortest route to the knights, so the man is obliged to remain silent while they are nearby. Curtis continues to talk. He doesn't want to keep silent. For some reason, his mood is quite high. He can't stop laughing the whole way until they separate. Schönberg is in the king's chamber. His older brother, who is raging and fuming. The younger one has ignored direct orders for the 4th time. He shrugs his shoulders. The man can continue to demand the lieutenant's resignation, but nothing will change. As the prince of the Ivaness family, he exercises his legal right. As a member of the family, the young man must understand his responsibilities. There is undisguised anger on the ruler's face. He does not consider it right to entrust the preparation of the banquet to his incompetent wife. So be it. The general will not give in. According to the military regulations of the ruling house of Ivaness, the Archduchess obeys her husband's orders. He intends to fulfill his duty as a prince, but solely within the framework of military discipline. The master cannot say anything more about this. His brother is truly a willful puppy, since he opposes himself in this way. The man himself understands that the conversation is pointless. He is simply fanning the flames of conflict. It would have been possible to follow what was ordered, but otherwise, such a beautiful expression on Ivaness's face would never have been seen. Yesterday's hug with Chloe, it was simply a reflex reaction to the release of pleasure. It was equal to a pat on the shoulder of a soldier after a good fight. The blonde thinks about his wife. She can be given a bonus, just enough for the clothes she likes so much. Curtis smiles. If there is nothing else to say, he is about to leave. The king shouts at him one last time that he may not come back. Abvance is waiting for him outside the door. The face shows concern. It seems that His Majesty is furious. Since this has happened, the gentleman offers to drive him to a white heat. Holding out his hand, He sees a displeased expression on his face, but he still grabs the lady and pulls her along with him. For now, the young man arrives in a special mood. The king's rotten face is quite a sight. It can't help but lift his spirits. The favorable state did not last very long. It was all due to a meeting with other soldiers from the detachment. They saw the two holding hands.
One of them struck me the most. The Duke is known for how neat he is. It's surprising that his hand touched someone else's. Moreover, next to him is Chloe, whom he diligently destroyed. The guy completely lost his mind, since he started asking about whether this is something normal, because such a thing is forbidden. Lieutenant Dubois greets his lordship. Corporal Sarah follows his example. The heroine thought that her husband would pretend not to notice the remark. She was dreaming. Because he gets into an argument, the brunette tries to wriggle out of it, but buries himself even deeper, noticing that Advance's beauty is a real crime. Gratitude for a compliment to a woman is not long in coming, but for comments to someone else's wife, this is too much, for this can get you into trouble. Ezra comes forward, who intends to resolve the situation. Congratulations on the marriage were overly familiar. It's surprising that, without saying anything, the lieutenant still apologizes. As the commander of the 2nd detachment, he shares responsibility for the mistake of the commander of the 1st. He does not want any of them to be punished. This is enough. They are close friends. The corporal is not on the list. She needed to meet with Chloe on personal business, she congratulates, and begins to try to carefully describe the situation. In fact, her mother would like to personally greet the Duchess. She is counting on a personal meeting. The Duke turns to her and asks if they are only waiting for his wife. Sarah gets scared and assures him that she simply formulated her wishes incorrectly. Her mother sent 2 daughters to the army. This is a reason for pride, but it is not easy for her. It is worth visiting her for a minute. The gentleman knows everything. They discuss the details as they go. He offers his hand. The lady doesn't understand whether she is allowed to take his elbow. Advance looks completely at ease. She doesn't care. Curtis explains that he just returned to duty, so there is not much time. There are many things that need to be done. Chloe is asked if she is okay. It is clear from her that the problem is not noticed. A friend then starts asking questions about the wedding with concern. He was really worried about why the ceremony happened, whether it was forced and everything else. His face has become haggard, although the girl assures that she eats until she bursts every day. Georges hasn't changed at all. At least something is stable, and that's reassuring. With someone else, it's just the opposite. Dubois behaves like a different person, without attaching any explanation to it. The brunette is surprised. They haven't seen their friend in ages. They could have stayed a little longer. Ezra doesn't see a reason. A greeting is enough. The lieutenant is also advised not to drag things out and not to be late for the commander's meeting. They won't forgive him for that. He behaves like a bore. The lady asks not to pay attention. Recently, her friend has become angrier. She was prepared for this. She would even be surprised if he was a little more friendly. Others should not be forced to communicate with the Duchess if many do not like her. Georges assures that this is not true. The young man is very glad that they are communicating and offers to invite him first to his first official reception. And he also wants to be introduced to the young ladies as Advance's best friend and the most eligible bachelor in the capital. The woman snorts, and he laughs. It's good that they have maintained their previous relationship. It's still a shame to think about what's happening with Dubois. It's better not to dwell on it. Everything happened too spontaneously. There's nothing to be done about it. You'll have to adapt. The workday after the wedding passed surprisingly calmly. The lady managed to relax a little after all the fuss. Everything was within expectations, but it was not entirely clear how quickly Ezra would cool down. The relaxed discipline was interrupted by a very unexpected, uninvited guest. A lady appeared in the office and started shouting from the doorway that this place looked completely inappropriate, that this was not how a royal person's workplace should look. Madame Bring was an assistant, personally chosen by the king, and she understood that she needed to keep an eye on Chloe on a constant basis. Rising from her chair, the lady asks what brought her to her. She immediately tells that she arrived at the behest of His Majesty the King for a gala reception on the occasion of the 28th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Glintrant. Since the Duke didn't strip the lady of her title, it became more difficult to provide assistance from the royal family.
It seems they showed generosity by maintaining their status. In the Duke's office, no one has the right to give orders. The lady snorts. I'm not ordering, but suggesting that you sit down. The heroine wants to ask for help, and is given this honor, she grumbles. The castle is full of different rooms for ladies of the court, and she is invited into a small room, despite her advanced age. Since it is cramped for her, she can help standing. It is surprising that she has to stick her head into the mouth of the royal snake. Her knees ache. They show her to the bed where she can sit down. Even maids are not treated like that. The red-haired woman wants to know why. Being a royal person, the beauty never left her job. Because of her, another unhappy old lady was added to the stuffy kennel. The king also doesn't care much about the new member of the family. It's obvious to the naked eye. The Duchess thought that she was dealing with a man of character. But it turns out she's just a chatty old woman. She can't understand why the Lord's favor is so easily rejected. Schönberg himself also acts incorrectly before going out the door. Mompiece wishes him luck with just one look. The woman sits down at the table and begins to work. The conversations of the new assistant are more like white noise. It's even easier that way. Seeing that the Duchess has been distracted from the conversation, Bring begins to squeal something about this being a mockery of etiquette. The heroine is tired of the showdown. She reminds that Madame has arrived for a special purpose. I wonder if she knows how receptions are organized. As is known, the girl from the family who was granted the title, she had never even had the chance to attend such a thing. Even the wedding banquet after her engagement to the Duke was the first in her life. The red-haired one sighs resignedly. In front of her is the one who is third in the government hierarchy, and at the same time publicly admits to such a disgrace. It is not clear whether this is what is meant, because recognition in her understanding is not a shame. Bring does not calm down. A high position implies high expectations. A ruler is obliged to know everything. The king knew what he was sending the lady to. The lieutenant remains calm until the very end. Since His Majesty sent a woman, it means her task is to help live up to expectations, and not to squeal. Someone who is in power and is part of the royal family should really know everything, but hardly from the womb. Learning takes time and practice. From now on, Madame has a mission that is important. The mistress must be made into a true ruler. The red-haired woman understands that she has lost the battle, and such conditions do not entirely suit her because the situation has escalated. The woman leans over and looks ominously straight into her soul. She clarifies whether Bring has come only to scold the third most powerful person in the kingdom. Chloe managed to get the hang of it. Serving as Curtis's adjutant, she learned one important truth. High-ranking persons are not obliged to delve into everything themselves. They are always important and irreplaceable people, because they are busy with important matters. They do not have enough time for this, so it always makes sense to transfer minor work to replaceable employees. In the past, the girl was constantly bombarded with the Duke's work, which left her with many nerve cells. The preparation of the royal banquet is an important matter. It should be led by Schönberg's wife. This right belongs to her, but there is only one catch. It is not fitting for such a high-status person to take on all the tasks from start to finish. The organization will be the task of Madame. Smiling with a sinister smile, the beauty shows with her appearance that she knows her rights. First, they will determine the purpose of the banquet and make a list of mandatory guests, the goal being the 28th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Glintrant. First of all, they will include the Glintrant delegation and everyone connected with this country, since His Majesty kindly sent an assistant. Of course, the red-haired one knows everything, and if you don't tell, then it will be your own fault, because it will be marked as a cover-up. The entire delegation will definitely be invited, and from the local nobility, Countess Engel and her husband will be there, Baron Leblanc, Viscount Fleur and his wife, Count Rihanna's family will also be invited. Invitations will be sent specifically to these individuals. There really are a ton of guests. What should I write for them in the invitations? Bring smirks, she asks, to write touching words about the 28th anniversary of diplomatic relations, of course. All by hand, it will be difficult. But there is no other way. The girl is not so simple, she nods, only mentioning one interesting detail. As an adjutant, she mastered the only official handwriting. the official palace font. If she wrote it herself, it was not a fact that all the guests would appreciate it. Any other official could write for her, and no one would notice the difference. Bring doesn't give up. She says that she still needs to remember all the nobles by sight. But the lady has already done this before the wedding. The heroine learned to receive guests. Since they helped her, and she even had an audience with the king, there were no complaints about her. The redhead is almost in a fit. She asks if the lady knows how to receive foreign guests. A weak point is discovered. The lady shrugs and doesn't know for sure. She is advised to pay attention. The back and lower back should not bend. The brunette asks to show. It is difficult to explain new information in words. She doesn't want to do this, but there is no choice. Getting out of bed. She shows that you need to stand straight. Tighten your abs so your lower back does not bend. Then take a step back with the toe of your left foot and bend your right knee. This impresses the lady. Bring bowed to the Duchess. The girl is given the protocol for the royal banquet. It contains records of all the banquets for the last 20 years. The records will help her. She just needs to leaf through them. The heroine sincerely thanks Noel. If not for him, she would feel lost. So he also copied everything by hand. The blonde asks if the assistant heard that the gentleman is going to the royal archives. State affairs are not children's games, but important events, of course. They must be documented. The young man's mood has soured again. Turning away, the Duke asks to spend time on something useful, and not on affection. It is better to try to remember at least one letter of what is written. There is a lot to learn. There may not even be enough time for it. His lordship is in a mood to find fault with others. Since he finds time for it, it would be good to learn a little from the lieutenant who rewrote everything himself. Noel does not make anyone work overtime, unlike his master. The girl applies her new knowledge with bring. After that meeting with the man, she left him in a thoughtful state and went to study the material. The heroine is pleased to see how they bow before her. Those standing behind the door cannot help but laugh, understanding the situation she found herself in. The red-haired one asks whether the attitude shown to her was only sincere praise and modesty. The challenge is accepted. There is no point in joking anymore. It is better to answer honestly, to show that she is not as weak as she seems. Bring shouts that she sincerely tried to help, and in response received such an attitude. In addition to the king's order, she obviously came to educate such an uncouth girl and not let her disgrace herself. She is fully aware. At least the assistant didn't come to disgrace her, because if she wanted to curry favor with the king, she could easily give Chloe false information and make a laughingstock of her in front of everyone at the banquet. The lady has a sense of responsibility, and she truly lives up to her reputation. A person who knows what dignity and etiquette are is important. The help she has already provided in a short time, and that she will continue to provide, is genuine, which means the situation should be resolved. The Duchess did not want to lose her help. She apologized to the elderly woman, who was only trying to do her job honestly. The heroine, like her, respectfully treats His Majesty, for she is also a subject of Ivanus. But, as a person, she harbors grievances. For this reason, she praised herself for being impolite and regretted it. If Bring conveyed everything said to the ruler, then the girl would come to an end. But the assistant did not come for this. She came precisely to turn the ignoramus, chattering nonsense, into a worthy ruler. The redhead feels cornered. She doesn't know what Ivaness sent her for, she can't read minds, and she only came out of a desire to serve the royal family, which needs it. Still part of the guard, as a soldier, the heroine pays tribute to the madam's patriotism and bows her head before her. She says that such a bow looks very good at first. The brunette thinks that she can breathe a sigh of relief. After all, Bring is not as scary as she seemed at first glance. Breaking out of my thoughts, the assistant suddenly starts giving me a lecture on how to improve my stance. Her Highness's legs are too long, which makes it look unsightly. It's better to try moving your back leg half a step back. The heroine is on duty. She thought she'd get to that later. In such cases, one must first show modesty and ask politely, understanding that in terms of time, the dedication with which the Duchess serves as a guard is highly commendable and worthy of respect. But they have an emergency situation, and Ivanus should not find himself in an awkward position. The woman doesn't understand why they attacked her, because the fault lies with the Duke. Bring doesn't believe it. The man avoids conflicts. During the day, he personally took the protocol of the ceremony for the reception from the royal archives, and Noel is proof of this. He came, citing a direct order from the master, and asked in detail about the location of the protocols. The general appears as if from nowhere. It makes no difference whether he gave the order or not. Only the result is important. The man heard the entire conversation. As usual, he appears at the most opportune moment. Since everything has gone this far, it would be best for Madame to fix everything and be responsible for the mistress until the very end. It will be easier for everyone, of course, except for her. Before the diplomatic reception, I still need to make it to Eleanor's meeting. Time is running out. Working hours are allowed to be used. I need to do everything possible to train the Duchess. She must be exemplary. The man directly states what is required. Madame agrees. Chloe feels like a shadow, as if she doesn't matter. Other people decide for her, which is not entirely surprising. Her Highness is dragged away to begin the first stage. Time passed quickly, the day everyone had been waiting for. When they were tired of demonstrating the fruits of Bring's training, arrived much sooner than expected. In addition to her task, Abvans also decided to come to work, without immediately explaining the reason. From the very morning, Her Highness found herself swamped with work. For the first time, she went to the hall, where she was already greeted, shown to a seat. The woman was informed that this was the main chair, which belonged specifically to her. Eleanor's meeting is taking place. Chloe is officially coming out into the world. On the day of this meeting, the girl is first met by a familiar face. She is the same one who fought under Curtis during the war years, Sarah's older sister, Theodora de Tournier, whom the heroine also knows through the detachment. Her Grace is pleased to meet the lieutenant. Her husband talked a lot about her before the meeting itself began. It is worth going to the prepared place, and then everything will begin. The Marquise of Flanders is not there, which means that the woman will occupy the most honorable place in the entire hall. Closer to Schönberg, of course, are the highest ranks, and a little further away, a familiar figure can already be seen. It is Agatha, who is just as dissatisfied as Chloe herself. The Duchess can endure time in her company because she sees in front of her Laura de Gaultier-Cloy, a fellow naval officer. The redhead was surprised when she suddenly learned the news. She asks if the lady has forgotten about her. It's nice that nothing happened, and even though many years have passed, they still remember her. Theodora notes that at Eleanor's meeting, the girl was gone for an eternity. The beauty explains her disappearance by saying that after getting married, she left her job and devoted herself entirely to her family. But her husband believed that sitting at home doing nothing was harmful, so he suggested dropping by the meeting. When she found out that Chloe would be there, she immediately plunged into memories of her youth. The brunette doesn't remember them being so close. She only joined the Navy for the money. Everyone shied away from her back then, but Chloe is still happy to see her and asks to be allowed to still consider the girl her friend. Of course she agrees. Smiling, the heroine calls her by name. Everyone in the room gasps, because no one is allowed to do this. The lady does not know how best to get out of the situation. She did not mean that she was allowing it familiarly. A lesson with Madame Bring comes to mind. In the army, it is customary to address people by rank, regardless of their relationship. At Eleanor's meeting, it might be a little different. If someone allows themselves to be disrespectful, it will be an insult not only to the Schönberg name, but also to the entire royal family. And one should be careful with this. The girl doesn't want to humiliate Viscountess Gautier, so she tries to resolve the situation calmly. She explains that mutual respect and harmony are especially important in friendship. The lady has come to strengthen their personal friendship and ask for help. The green-eyed one also didn't come just like that. She didn't come to support out of personal sympathy, so the Duchess shouldn't rely on personal connections if she has an important matter ahead of her. She hopes that she explained it clearly and they can understand each other. Looking around the room, Schönberg waits for a reaction. She feels a little awkward saying this, but she hopes that everything is fine. She will try to be impartial and fair, doing so without excessive familiarity, which could harm the royal family and its reputation. The acquaintance nods. She understood the hidden meaning behind the words. She made a mistake, but still hopes that her desire to help will be understood, even if it is out of old friendship. The Duchess is never against help. On the contrary, she needs things to be easier for her.
Everyone is given different tasks.
I would like Lady Felpatine to take on the preparation of the dishes. Since she has experience, my head is spinning. Too much needs to be taken into account. If not for Theodora, the situation would have noticeably worsened. Maybe she should have been the Archduchess and run the meeting. It seems that everyone will be busy, except, of course, Her Highness. The girl is reassured that coordinating decisions is the most difficult thing. Ideally, this should be done by the prince's wife or the Marquis of Flanders. It is unknown whether they will even be at the banquet. They have placed a heavy burden on fragile shoulders. Social skills are also incredibly important, and it's not just organizational skills that play a role. If the Duchess is having trouble, people from the assembly will help. Schönberg may seem harsh, but she is kind. At one time, in the Navy, no one at first understood why she was like that. After a while, everyone loved her and began to feel more comfortable. The brunette doesn't know how to react. It feels like a compliment. Abvans has always been straightforward, but this trait wasn't immediately understood. It took a little time to talk, and everyone immediately saw what she really is. They intervene in the conversation, cutting the Viscountess off mid-sentence. Agatha remarks that Gautier is not so close to the lady. If she were to experience her art of conversation, she would never try to object to anything. The ability to anger a person without a single curse is the highest level of skill. Monpiece is interrupted, so that the meeting can continue peacefully. Lady Cran and Aven are appointed to select the furniture. They, together with the Duchess of Senemuner, will be engaged in decorating the hall. The distribution of roles is coming to an end. Everyone is allowed to go to their places, while Berg is still choosing the dishes. The beauty peers in. Gautier asks what she prefers, and after receiving an answer about a summer or white service, he tries to connect some of the logical chains. The establishment of diplomatic relations with Glintrant became possible thanks to the marriage of the late queen and the previous king. Since the queen has passed away, perhaps the color white will be associated with her death, and this will spoil the whole event. If you think about this color, you immediately remember the snow-white wedding dress of the lady. Theodora speaks up. The king is unlikely to approve of white. What's happening is quite tiring, even too much so. The secular society is surprising. Everyone comes with clear goals and ready-made speeches, because each one has significance. The gaze shifts to the side. Agatha, obviously, came to find fault with the Duchess. She has her own vendetta. Even more interesting is Laura. Her behavior is strange. But it is clear that she wants to strengthen ties because of Chloe's new status. She wants to get some privileges. The most mysterious one in the whole room is Theodora. She doesn't try to ruin everything. She seems to help, but without much warmth. It's not just a matter of not wanting to get involved in social troubles. She has some other reason, which is not so easy to uncover in order to fully understand the situation. Madame Bring arrived to inform the lady that the Duke was no longer waiting. He said he had a message and wanted to personally escort his wife. He appeared, walking forward, asking forgiveness from everyone else. He would greet the ladies properly, but a little later, extending his hand, he asked Chloe to go with him. For the first time in her life, the maiden is truly happy that she will be rescued from the trap. She has time to get tired. It is time for Theodora to go. The rest of the issues will be resolved later, and Her Highness will be informed about everything. Finally, the heroine leaves the meeting, thinking about what awaits her next. Bring is giving a lesson. She counts down and asks him to follow the steps of the Archduke and repeat everything. The girl asks what her husband wanted to talk about. He smirks, and without any embarrassment, declares that it was just an excuse. She can't help but joke, "Have you forgotten already?" They say that one of the maids ran away from the Schönberg estate. Besides this detail, it was time for dance practice. It was worth saying words of gratitude. The gentleman was very busy and came to personally accompany the woman, and also helped with the rehearsal, not leaving her alone with this problem. Ordinary husbands don't so demonstratively patronize their wives. The maiden remarks that she could practice with someone else. The Duke's comment sounds inappropriate, considering that he himself is accompanying other ladies. The blonde smiles for a moment and, leaning closer, whispers, "Are you jealous?" At least there's no point in being jealous of the officer. Managing to hit on women in the guard twice is a bit much. The heroine perceives this as meaning that if Sarah or Theodora resign, anything will be possible, which becomes unpleasant. The Duke doesn't understand what his partner is thinking about. For some reason, she remembers the maid. Since she ran away, it seems they didn't treat her very well. That happens too. The blonde man shrugs. While he was alone, he didn't have such problems. The lady, however, knows his standards. Before Chloe came to the service, about 10 adjutants had changed. The maids are probably treated in the same way, with terrible treatment. A revolution is inevitable, so the actions show that everything is logical. Bring asks to stop talking and speed up the pace. The Duchess begins to try. Everything is too fast, and she is completely inexperienced in this. The beauty almost falls, because there is a jump that she does not have time to adjust to. She is asked if everything is okay, and the answer is a nod. I can't believe that everyone was dragging the trains of their dresses behind them. The skirt is too full. It sounds dissatisfied with admiration. The girl doesn't like such rules. If she wanted to look so much, she shouldn't have been forced to dress up. The master in charge, he can order the maids to constantly wear flowing dresses that will rustle in front of him all day long. Not a bad idea, Madam advises not to relax. Chloe has not yet recovered from the last jump. There will be another turn for which she needs to prepare. The woman talks about Tournier again. She wonders what they talked about then. It turns out that there was nothing special. There are rumors about another officer. They say that Madame Dubois has fallen ill. There are rumors that her son is a complete fool, since his woman was taken away from him right before their wedding. It immediately becomes clear what is the reason for the young man's sullen behavior. The blonde is interested in whether his wife was cheated on. He does not say why he asks such a question. It's just that every time he sees Ezra, his insolent behavior and look at the lady infuriates him. Perhaps there was more to the deal with the boxes of sweets, but no one is revealing it. The Duchess is pure, but no one knows what is on the young man's mind. Only he himself understands what he is thinking. It is still unpleasant. Before the next turn, Chloe presses Curtis closer to her. She whispers something in his ear about how, if she could think, she would never have gotten married. It turns out, she should be glad that she is stupid. Every word of a lady is a real masterpiece. Whoever chose her was definitely a genius. At the event, Theodora is next to Laura, a second lieutenant belonging to the 8th Regiment, but she is not in Kelty. This is temporary, because it turns out that she received an order to protect an important person. Gautier suggests placing a blue service in the middle of the table. The beauty understands that the color is terrible. The plates have no merit other than the fact that the king likes them. It is strange that it seems so important for the supporters of the royal party to demonstrate their position. Tournier notes that the plate looks too heavy to the eye. Laura, smiling ominously, remarks that soldiers must be smart, and they respond in the same spirit. The virtue of a soldier is unquestioning obedience to orders. They ask the blue dishes to be removed and replaced with others, and the maids immediately obey. Everyone who is preparing decides to take a break and then continue with renewed vigor. They all gather together. Gautier starts speaking first. She recalls the past. Before, she had one comrade in the Navy, and it is always like that with the Navy. Impoverished aristocrats often go there. They count on the dowry of their brides. Usually, such poor fellows have absolutely no understanding of manners or small talk. Of course they look like complete laymen. The life of that comrade was modest, even sadly modest. Some even called him wretched. The woman smirked when she saw him years later. It turned out he had married very well. Rumor had it he had gone out of his way for this marriage. While Theodora was considering whether to stop the lady, Agatha herself spoke up. Madame Gautier had arrived for work. She should not discredit the honor of the Duke of Berg instead of her duties. Laura smiles, exclaiming that she would never do such a thing. It seems she was misunderstood, although if you listen closely, there is reason for suspicion. But even if the lady said so, she did not expect that Montpie would so fiercely defend the interests of the Archduchess. Agatha can't help but say that she's wrong. She doesn't understand it herself, so she defends the one who stole the man from under her nose. It's strange that she's still haunted by that phrase. When the girl burst into tears in the boutique, she reproaches Gautier. The members of Eleanor must set an example for the honor of the crown. The green-eyed one continues to act stupid. She repeats again that she only told about her unfortunate comrade in the fleet. She did not hint that his younger sister is obviously a half-breed, or that he stubbornly proves their relationship. Those gathered realize that this is already going beyond all bounds. Theodora finally intervenes. No matter who appears in the story, there is no point in continuing to discuss the absentees. The break is over. It is time to return to work. Tournier feels tired. She hopes that the reception will end soon. Madame Gautier this time asks how the initiation is planned. The Archduchess must also undergo a ceremony. She must wait for Flanders, but she has a feeling that the opportunity will present itself soon. The lieutenant has been responsible for protecting Duchess Glintrant for 2 weeks now. The kingdom has a full-fledged guard, but because Duke Berg caused a stir, the responsibility was dumped on an army officer. She is upset, but orders are not discussed and nothing can be done about it. For a task that boils down to protecting one person, the level of difficulty is clearly too high. The girl constantly disappears. She is not a hired killer, but an ordinary aristocrat, but she has skills that constantly help her elude security, as if she becomes a shadow. Previously, Isabella had an excuse about the garden. She said it was so beautiful that the maiden accidentally got lost. Then, the excuse changed. For example, it included the fact that she was looking for the restroom and accidentally fell behind her officer. The situation didn't look like it could improve. The girl had run away hundreds of times under ridiculous pretexts and had done the same thing again. The lieutenant couldn't understand how she was able to slip away. The timing of her escapes was completely unpredictable, and what was left of her nerves was already at the very limit. Desperation reached a certain point. The woman showed up and said that if Isabella tried to escape even once more, she would be forced to suspect her of spying. After being threatened, the aristocrat simply became even more sophisticated in her disappearance skills. The guards even tried to complain to the king, but he brushed them off and asked them to leave the lady alone, because if she needed to calm her heart after a breakup, then it would be easier to let her go for a walk, because it's normal to want to be alone. There's no need to run after her like that. The lieutenant is informed that Glintrant has been found. It turns out she was spending time with the ruler. Tournier does not know why she was called. She was just doing her duty and doing everything right, trying to keep an eye on her target. The gentleman started talking about the Duke, Berg, who supposedly fights for the country, decided to show his true face. Tournier does not say what he thinks. The man gets up from his seat and notices that the girl is also part of Eleanor's meeting, which takes place quite often, with all the important aristocrats. Smiling ominously, not even trying to hide his intentions, Ivanus asks to look after the Archduchess. Tournier hates such requests. She feels uneasy, considering that yesterday she spoke with Sarah, who was incredibly happy after talking with the Duke. It turned out that he accompanied her and asked her to look after his wife, and he also promised that he would visit them with his mother. He just needs to find free time. Everything has become too problematic. Theodora understands that she will be torn between several options. The upcoming event is truly one of the most lavish. On the 28th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Glintrant, Chloe Berg's official debut will take place. The summer ball is very romantic, with beauty everywhere that will take your breath away. Rumors begin to circulate long before the event even begins, saying that His Majesty sent the distinguished Madame Bring to Abvans. Yet some are disappointed that the ball was perfectly organized. Although this is thanks to Eleanor's assembly, the king is merciful, since he did not allow any disgrace. The hostess of the event arrived, and Her Highness was immediately surrounded to greet her and compliment her on her impeccable appearance. People are different, and the girl would like to do everything to please everyone. But this is not something that can happen so easily. Her strength is already running out. The maiden is about to eat, even though she is only a temporary duchess. But since that is the case, she needs to enjoy all the benefits. The woman has not taken a crumb since early morning, so she is very hungry. For a simple check of the treats, she got too carried away. There is no prohibition on food among the obligations. Everyone pretends not to listen, so it will be possible to take advantage of the ideal moment. The lady hoped for a more peaceful life after marriage, but her hopes were simply dashed. With more overtime and no time to eat, the heroine suggests the others listen. Everyone knows how the Duke constantly bullied her, rumors have it, especially since the security logs leaked to the press. The guards are famous for their strictness, but they always fed them well. Having become a duchess, Chloe doesn't even have time to eat properly. If it weren't for the ladies from Eleanor's collection, she would have had a really hard time. They supported her during the most hectic period, helped her cope with everything, and the ball promises to be a success. It's clear that the heroine is a little hasty with her gratitude. However, she cannot restrain herself from the overwhelming gratitude. This is truly the blessing of the great dragon Ayabaneris and Gran Asade. Those gathered admit that for a newly minted duchess, Chloe is not behaving so badly. Those who offered assistance were happy to help with everything that was required of them to consolidate their good image. The lady only has to listen to everyone. Having become the hostess of the ball, she understands that there is no other way out. She will have to squeeze out the maximum charm from herself. The Duchess slightly overestimated her strength. The small talk lasted almost forever. The husband offers to bring fruit, to which he is displeased. He recently scolded his wife for gluttony. It seems to him that if he does not eat anything, everything will end badly. The girl agrees to the food, but she asks for non-sweet fruits. It seems she has already talked until the taste of syrup remains in her mouth. The limit has been reached too early, and then comes the official part. They announce that His Majesty the King has arrived. They have been waiting for him for a long time. Staring at the entrance, the brunette freezes with an expression of hostility. It's strange, but Isabella is next to him. She's practically attached to him. Glintrant is acting as if she's already become Evanessa's wife. This can't be done. A diplomatic scandal follows, and the ruler himself doesn't know what he's doing. The blonde snorts. From the outside, it looks like the banquet is being held to celebrate a remarriage. The aristocrats in the hall are also not delighted. Flanders expresses displeasure. Her breath is taken away with indignation. For the sake of his constant desire to torment his sister, this is too much. Her Majesty the Queen was wise. If she had lived a little longer, this would not have happened. Nothing can be done. There are people in the world who are scoundrels by nature. It's just a pity that the king himself turned out to be a scoundrel. He was always mean and tormented the queen just because he didn't like her appearance. He glows with happiness, and that makes it even worse. Flanders has given the signal, but it is not a fact that the young man is ready. The Duke is standing aside. They still have a personal meeting to meet, but for now, the banquet continues. Soon, the event will come to an end. Glintrant smiles at her grace and thanks her for how everything was organized. She is glad that everything was liked. Isabella really had fun. But of course, special thanks should go to the ruler because he was always there. He failed to act as a matchmaker. The main thing is that at least some friendly relations were maintained. The brunette steps forward and, bowing her head, declares that thanks to Ivanis, an insignificant person like her was honored to host the ball. The king smirks, noting that it is a good sign to be aware of one's insignificance. The woman holds back her anger, while His Majesty is asked not to spoil the pleasant evening with his words. Isabella again begins to subtly portray a sweet companion, causing him to break into a smile. Glintrant remembers the Duke and asks where he is. She would like to say hello to him. Apparently, he felt that his failed wife would approach and left early. He will be back soon. Went to say hello to Lord Oslo, the ambassador. The pink-haired one is flattering. They look quite good together. It would be nice to see them standing next to each other. As far as the Duchess knows, she already saw the couple at a wedding. It was delightful, but very soon temporary. She turns her attention to the officer. They say that Tournier played an important role in organizing the event. It is nice that she tried. The woman assures that she did it for Ivaness. Gautier intervenes in the conversation. She notes that she tried for the sake of the Duchess herself. Laura imagines that she personally chose the service, which suited the refined appearance, and the curtains in the hall, and even the carpet, all not to her excellent taste. The ladies who are part of Eleanor are dissatisfied. They all divided the duties, and the girl is trying to curry favor by pulling the blanket over herself. Glintrant listened in silence until the Duke himself appeared. She immediately smiled even more than before and came closer. She was no longer interested in organizational matters. She can't help but notice that Berg looks especially gorgeous, as if he were suited to the occasion. The Duchess speaks as if they have known each other for a long time, but they are meeting for the first time, so such compliments do not seem appropriate to Curtis.
She understands, but she has seen his portrait before, and more than once, because he is quite popular in her country, all because of his incredible beauty. Every self-respecting girl has at least one newspaper clipping with a portrait, the blonde chuckles. Do you have one too? With a blush of red, Glintrant reminds her that she was a potential bride from the start, so she too had a cut. The king intervenes, believing that it is time for the Archduke and Duchess of Honor to dance together. He yields Isabella to his brother and is not against retreating. Even if it were possible, the man hasn't danced with his own wife yet. And this is ignorance, Laura is surprised. All the other couples have already performed their first dance, and after that went to enjoy the rest of the evening in the company of friends with excellent drinks. If this continues, it is unknown when he will be able to give other ladies a chance. Chloe does not dance for this very reason, but she cannot imagine Berg, obsessed with cleanliness, holding someone else's hand. With his habits, it is unknown when he will be able to fall in love and marry again. Ivanis knows how to behave correctly to push the two together. Schönberg organized a reception in honor of the anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. If her husband ignores Isabella at such a ball, it will be considered a personal failure of the hostess. Everyone knows that he is just waiting for an opportunity to humiliate the girl. But this situation reaches the point of absurdity. Curtis asks Chloe's opinion. She clenches her teeth to stop her outburst of anger. Exhaling, she gives the go-ahead. There is nothing terrible in dancing. Since His Majesty showed such attention to her, he should also show due honor to the Duchess. The man is calmly asked to also greet the other aristocrats present at the event. The girls from Ivaness should also find out how caring the gentleman can be, despite his infamous fastidiousness. The heroine hints that while the general is away, she will try to find him a new candidate for a wife. His face twisted with anger, the blonde thought that his archduchess was just a nice lady. But she, it turns out, was also unusually sensitive. Since it turned out that way, the young man approaches Isabella and asks if she would do him the honor of going to the dance with him. Lowering her hand into his palm, she replies that she will agree. The tension is palpable. Even the assembled aristocrats understand that the master is angry, and there is nothing to say about Glintrant. A soft melody plays. Two people are circling around the room holding hands. The Duchess didn't think that she would be given 2 whole dances. Answering through her teeth, the man assures that this would not have happened if it weren't for his wife. I didn't expect that I would have the chance to dance with you so spontaneously. The smell of amber makes your head hurt. It's unbearable. The hero gets what he deserves for his stupid prank. The girl tells how she once spent her nights indulging in her dreams of marriage, and seeing him in person, the lady fell in love even more. At those moments, the lady was the happiest on the entire planet. The music changed slightly. Dancing the Passacaglia in close proximity was very creative on Isabella's part. She could confidently go on stage at a large theater. Trying to test the waters, the aristocrat asks what kind of ladies the Duke prefers, in case she fits his standards. Before talking about tastes, it's worth remembering that Glintrant is the worst match for discussion. She doesn't pay attention to this. You are too strict with me. The country from which the lady came is small and secluded, but at least there are no old men there who plot against their younger brothers, as happens in Ivanessa. The young man is already married, but in the opinion of men, he has long since developed a vice, especially if the wife was significantly lower in status. Everything is leading to calling Chloe pathetic. The girl didn't mean it that way, of course, because such a thing would never have occurred to her. Someone suggested what was better to present. The young man feels uneasy about this being true. He himself once took advantage of the adjutant's low status, despite the fact that he was the first to do so. He is irritated when someone else allows themselves to make such comments, which is completely unbecoming. Grinning, the blonde finds the perfect answer, he teases, asking if even women with children are a good match in Glintrant. It's funny to believe, because it's not true. Isabella's face changes. She can no longer smile. Chloe stands to the side, enjoying the relaxation. Watching the couple, she admits to herself that they dance well. Maybe it's because she's a lady from high society and is used to dancing. The movements are coordinated. There is not a single hitch,
only smooth movements and calm.
It's not immediately obvious, but they look simply wonderful together. Even some of the aristocrats standing nearby do not hold back from commenting. Perhaps love changes a person's skills. It seems that they all think about Isabella and Curtis in approximately the same way. Philip appears from behind. Thanks to Chloe, he saw such an incredible phenomenon. He means that it is surprising to see how his uncle is jealous, because this is not usually typical for him. He puts his villa on the fact that the blonde got angry and went dancing out of emotion. The prince suggests taking advantage of the moment while no one is disturbing them and finishing greeting the rest of the guests. The girl wanted to refuse, remembering that she had promised to help Curtis. She really needed to finish at least one final task. Without a partner, it will be a bit awkward. No one will ever want to help such a psychotic sociopath as the Duke. Soon the girl will be able to find a suitable partner for the boy, and he will not have to suffer anymore. But this will take a lot of her energy and effort. Glintrant didn't even flinch after the Duke's words, although she noticed that it was too bold. Being from Avanus, the hero doesn't consider her an attractive match at all. He suggests that she stop being annoying so as not to disappear quietly. Finally, the lady falls silent. No matter whether she is thinking about how to answer, her gaze switches to Chloe, who is standing to the side. She had a complete failure in finding friends. She wanted to introduce her husband to girls, but if she continues to stand like a pillar, her plan will not bear fruit. He expects to be able to start a conversation with at least someone, and to meet his expectations, the brunette approaches one of the aristocrats. She talks with her for a few minutes, and then everything returns to normal. The lieutenant does not give up so easily and tries to start another conversation. Everything is much better than expected. It seemed that the girl would feel lost, but she is trying to do everything so that there are no failures. Watching from the side, the young man admits that the heroine is like a duckling. She is funny. You want to watch her further. A realization comes to mind. The hero doesn't understand what he's even thinking about. He doesn't understand. That's why he wants to watch it again and again. Isabella speaks up. She notes that his lordship is truly in love with his wife. He tries to brush it off. The man notes that it happens, that one can fall in love with a jester. Even Glintrant herself notes that such a thing is not right to say. His lordship is also the Marquis of Celeria, which means that he is obliged to fulfill his duties in Glintrant as well. The young man did not ask for this title. He could have refused it. But everything is not so simple. This is the only inheritance left by his late mother. The master is rich, and Celeria is a poor land. It would be possible to at least return the country back to the duchy. She spoke of Celeria as if it mattered at all, but everyone knew the king considered it a useless land. The duchess did not know. Leaving a path of retreat was the duty of any commander on the battlefield. The dance ended. Thanks were received. Only the Duke was not pleased. Before finally leaving the gentleman, the girl asks if he received the vase that was given as a wedding gift. He nods. The thing is a piece of trash. Isabella winks. That's unlikely. The vase has its own value. Avanus is a wonderful country. All thanks to His Majesty. The lady was pleasantly surprised when she was able to come to the Empire. You shouldn't say that. But Glintrant is a much poorer state. Even Chloe knows that the ambassador is forbidden to speak like that. The silence is pleasant, but there are very few plains. The proximity of the sea makes agriculture almost impossible. The woman humiliates her homeland, but Chloe has no right to speak out on this matter. The king changes the topic to his favorite. They say the girl lived poorly and replaced the family's parents. She must be happy to become rich. The old man dared to touch upon the most precious thing. My mother and father were real fanatics. They only knew how to research, did not know how to earn money, and dumped their brothers and sisters on the eldest. But they do not deserve to be discussed. Thanks to the grace of His Majesty, Chloe served in the Navy and lived without need. The younger ones received a good education. Eric is the best cadet of the Royal Academy. Leah has been leading the law department of the capital's school for girls all year. And the youngest of the family is studying with a home tutor. The girl was always devoted to the crown and served diligently. To tell the truth, they didn't have enough money, but Abvance raised the boys and didn't let them go hungry. They weren't a burden to anyone. The family is something to be proud of. The king caught up with them again, although you're certainly nowhere near the Duke's wealth. Schönberg comes to the defense, thanks to this.
He was able to fit into Chloe's ideal life. Wealth is not the main thing, but alas, some are happy only in luxury. They cannot fill their lives with anything else, no matter how hard they try to do it. He considers himself a pitiful soul for entering this camp, and is therefore glad that he can adorn with jewels a woman who is beautiful even without necklaces. Ivanis is interested in the moment of the Duke's late greed. It seems that his condition has awakened unnecessary ambitions in his wife. The gentleman was informed that she had gravely insulted Glintrant. It was not a question of marriage, but of something else. For this, the girl needed to be asked. Before this, Isabella, as expected, sent wedding gifts to the couple. She sent 32 gifts, including a jade vase, a national treasure of her country. The woman explains that she received a gift, and the vase was used to decorate the dining table. It looks magnificent. The Marquis of Flanders is sent to bring that very vase. He rolls a tray into the middle of the hall. Amazingly, 2 identical vases appear before them. They found this thing in an antique shop on the street Papetin and Iziali. The property of the country cannot be sold in the shop. Of course, the gift was immediately confiscated, and after interrogating the dealer, it turned out that Chloe personally ordered her maid to sell it. The girl grew up in poverty, but this is no reason to sell a state relic for profit. This is considered excessive greed. The Lord turns to Isabella. If she knew everything, she should have consulted with him. She should have been more careful. That's what the king thinks. Min, be that as it may, it happened in the house of the royal family of Anis. The investigation was carried out as quickly as possible, and the marquise herself took part in it. Upon examination of the vase from the duke's residence, it was found that it was made of glass, while the one confiscated from the fence was genuine, made of jade from the Tawai Mountains, and was presented to Her Majesty the King about 30 years ago. Usually, in such situations, the royal guard would conduct an investigation. But since the matter was related to Berg, his sister carried out the investigation personally, which is the reason why Flanders did not appear at Eleanor's meeting and did not prepare for the event. This doesn't concern Curtis. There is evidence that his wife personally sold the vase. He is against it. After the wedding, the girl spent all her time with him. The maid is mentioned again. The relic was not sold personally, but acted extremely secretively. Just recently, one of the residence's maids went missing, and when it was reported, the mistress didn't attach much importance to it. Isabella stood there, wiping away her tears, trying to understand why she didn't like the gift, but she couldn't come to a conclusion. The king suggests that sudden wealth has awakened greed in a girl from a family that had never known luxury. He speaks in a veiled manner, but it is not difficult to understand what exactly he means. The ruler asks not to go so far and tries to calm Glintrant down. A gift from an incredibly beautiful rival may have irritated Chloe. The Archduchess is called forward to give her own answer, a lump in her throat. They are trying to disgrace her, resorting to cruel, pathetic methods. It was mentioned earlier that one of the vases was a fake and had been taken from the estate. It was usually not allowed to take things without the owner's permission, but given the circumstances, the king politely asked the butler to accommodate. The man was told that the gift would be taken for analysis to preserve His Highness's reputation. He was taking revenge for the previous service inspection. They would question him. The vase was one of the most valuable gifts, so the Duchess always kept it close to her. It was impossible for him to tell from the very beginning whether the relic was genuine or a fake. There were always a lot of people in the Schönberg residence, and it was not a fact that the thing could have been taken out unnoticed. This would be problematic even for the most virtuoso servant. The conversation turns to comparison. If a gift was taken away in the morning and a fake was brought back in the evening, the man would not notice it. He complains that he does not have such a keen eye. Even if someone with such experience could not detect the substitution, the fake was of the highest quality. To secretly order such a skillful thing in such a short time would require a considerable fortune, apparently. Resources on the level of the Archduke's family were needed. Chloe is completely confused, and this amuses His Majesty. He presses until the very end. They don't want to condemn a noble lady for having pocket money, however. Everything has its limits, he shouts, while the Duke, by insisting on marriage with the lieutenant, insulted Glintrant. His new wife allowed herself to indulge in base greed. The words are clear Everything is logical from the gentleman's side. He assures that the maiden, being from an ignoble family, became an archduchess, cultivated wealth and sold the vase, insulting another country, and even made a counterfeit. Chloe is unsure of what she is going to do. No one understands her motive, until she asks the Marquise which of the relics is not real. As soon as she is told, the brunette immediately takes off the case. Everyone in the room freezes in anticipation. A moment later, the lieutenant hits the vase so hard that it breaks into pieces. It turns out that it is just a piece of glass, nothing more. His Majesty, who just 10 minutes ago was the most vocal, just back away. All the aristocrats have confused faces. It's surprising what confused them so much. Maybe the reason was that Chloe, who suddenly became rich, tried to quietly line her pockets and ended up disgracing herself. Or there is another reason. Perhaps they are surprised by the fact that the lady went berserk and broke a glass vase right in front of the king, or by how low Ivanis has fallen. In an attempt to tarnish the reputation of his brother's wife, he screams even louder than before, has recovered from the shock, and does not know why the woman behaved this way. It doesn't matter what happens next. Tolerating treatment worse than that of a dog is also part of the contract, as the ruler of the empire said. The girl grew up in a family where she couldn't afford luxury, so she's unable to distinguish between high-quality things. It's hard for her to tell what's made of glass and what's worth millions. The king is furious. While he was trying to scold the archduchess after catching her in a lie, the girl decided to cause a commotion. He does not yet know what awaits him next. You can expect anything from Chloe. The wife calls her husband, the Archduke, the very man who is a member of the royal family from birth, immediately identified the vase as a cheap one. He checked it even before the maid disappeared, before the butler confiscated the fake. It can be assumed that the relic was replaced from the very beginning, the man groans. The lady doubts the ministry, doubts the ruler of the country, that he himself started all this. It leads to a completely different outcome. Because she doubts Glintrant's honesty, the maiden clearly remembers how surprised she was by the gift from the one who was rejected, and then Curtis said that, perhaps for this reason, a cheap thing was sent. All this was a trick planned from the very beginning to put the lieutenant. To some extent, what happened was expected. The couple discussed that the king would do everything to humiliate a woman from the squad. She was ready for anything, but not for the family to be remembered in bad taste. The girl with her eyes asks to allow her to protect her brothers and sisters. They should not suffer. Curtis gives his consent. Chloe, before she got married, had no connections with the aristocracy. She received the vase as a gift 3 weeks ago. She had no opportunity to pull off the trick. She doesn't even know Pepperton Street. Glintrant could not have had any reason to immediately disgrace himself and frame Ivanis. One can agree with the king on this, but he has a motive, because he hates Curtis. The man is looking for support from his sister. We have testimony, so it was not the servant who did this. Even if the vase is glass, such work is beyond the means of an ordinary maid. The ruler calls Laura to him. She said that she was preparing dishes for the banquet. Having corrected the distorted name, the girl comes closer. As a noblewoman with taste sufficient to prepare dishes for a royal banquet, she must know how much it would take to make a fake, Gautier ponders, her gaze darting helplessly around the room. The ruler is putting pressure on her. The question he asked could have serious diplomatic consequences. She needs to make the right decision. She is scared. She can't screw up, because then the family will have consequences worse than what she herself could experience. With sufficient financial support, anything is possible. Recently, glassblowers from Tevez have been working in many countries, and it doesn't take much time. The 38 glass bowls that their family ordered for their first child's first birthday were made within a week of the order. Gautier seems to be claiming that the girl is such a capable and worthy aristocrat that she was able to make a fake vase from resin in just a week, and that the reason she went to so much trouble is simply because she is the daughter of a poor family and does not like Glintrant, who sent the gift. It became clear why Curtis had such a bad character. If such stupid, insignificant, but extremely unpleasant intrigues were built at every step, anyone would become like him. The more she listens, the more amazed she is. Suddenly, Agatha comes forward. She declares that she saw everything. Monpeace wants to stop his daughter, but she is stopped.
The king knows that she cannot stand Chloe. The girl heard them discussing the fence, the antique shop at the back of the Rue Papatin.
The name of the shop is Jean Claire. The king assumes that the marquise befriended the lady only to confirm through her that the antics of the archduchess are true, which cannot but deserve praise. Blue Eyes reveals something that no one expects from her. She saw Glintrant in that very store. The duchess freezes in horror. She feels amazed. Agatha remembers that this happened the day after the wedding of the Schönberg couple. His Majesty the King can well guess what this means. The pink-haired one does not know how she managed to get caught. She thought that no one could notice her. If this continues, all suspicion will fall on her. The maiden wants to find Monpiece's weak spot. She, meanwhile, continues. She says this not as a lady, but as a staff sergeant of the Royal Guard. She saw Isabella talking to the owner of the store, Jean Claire. The girl remembers an important detail. She smiles. Noting that perhaps the lady was mistaken, she shakes her head. The pink-haired girl has such a beautiful appearance that it is impossible to forget her. Isabella had heard the name before, because in front of her was the heroine of that very incident. That story with the tearful marriage proposal that happened at one of the receptions. Agatha's face flushed. She was ashamed. It was possible to find out the name only because the beauty was among those with whom the marriage with Berg was discussed. Montpiece was 17 years old at the time. She disgraced herself, lied to her friends that she was engaged to the Duke, but she was exposed, and as a result, at a banquet, she tearfully proposed to become husband and wife. The sweet story, at one time, became a topic of conversation even in Glintrant. The blue-eyed one believes that she never lied, but that rumors distorted everything because the situation was resolved more simply. Right up until the end, Isabella continues to talk about what happened. The fact that a girl proposes instead of a man, this can really be considered an extraordinary act that can be laughed at. Chloe can't keep silent any longer. She asks what Glintrant has done. She is behaving lowly, and not at all like a duchess. There is an expression of anger on her face. Everything has gone too far. Agatha was confused about her feelings. She was only 17 years old when she met her older brother's friend, Curtis Berg. He was the very man who could make the young lady's heart flutter. Only one meeting and then she put everything in its place. It was love at first sight. The girl constantly discussed Schönberg with her friends. He was simply amazing. Newspaper illustrations did not even come close. He was the most beautiful man that Agatha had ever seen. Without even suspecting it, the young man had won a place in her heart. Each time, the beauty told how she fell in love with Curtis at first sight. She promised herself that she would definitely marry the Archduke. The secret entrusted to her friend was instantly distorted by rumors. Everything reached the ears of Schönberg himself, who was surprised that he was engaged to Montpiece. The blue-eyed girl experienced the greatest feeling of shame in her life. Because she confessed her feelings, strange rumors began to creep in, and she did not want this. The gentleman understood everything, because the girl was also put in a difficult position. That day, the blonde dropped a phrase about gratitude for feelings. The words made her head spin. Not fully realizing what she was doing, the girl asked if she could be considered as a companion. The Duke not only refused, he behaved rudely, declaring that such a thing would never happen. The leniency shown to the girl because of his friendship with her older brother ended. The man was no longer going to pretend that everything was normal. That day, the world turned upside down. After Curtis rejected her love, Agatha cried all day. Naturally, as happens in high society, she became the object of general ridicule. They talked about her as the one who proposed to the man. It was discussed as funny gossip, and only the intervention of the Count's house of Montpiece made them stop. After several years, passions subsided, but this story remained a wound from the past that should not be touched, and especially not rubbed with salt. Isabella acted terribly. She makes everyone remember the shame again. Ironically, no one supported Agatha. Only Chloe, the one whom the maiden hated so much, was the one who wanted to help. Tears appeared in her eyes. The aristocrats couldn't believe what was happening. In such a situation, the Archduchess was defending Montpiece, and this impressed them all. Everyone's first love was awkward and clumsy. There was no point in discussing mistakes made in the past. It may be true that the story was distorted by rumors, But the Duchess knows better than anyone that this is an unpleasant topic for the girl to discuss, considering that the girl was not even there when it all happened. Isabella's mention of the situation seems like an attempt to get out of a difficult situation. Everyone remembers that the matter really wasn't about Monpeace. It all started with a fake vase and false accusations of a gift being substituted. The pink-haired girl finds the courage to joke again, noting that friendship is especially touching between two ladies sharing the same man. Agatha explodes. She is already on edge and does not want to discuss friendship with the one she hates. The king asks to stop the discussion and return to the main problem, whether the Archduchess sold the vase or not. It remains to be seen, according to the butler's testimony, that one of the maids sold the gift and ran away. Even the man himself is trying to make it clear that he didn't say exactly that. There is only one way out. Chloe is obliged to present evidence that she did nothing. She has already said that she has nothing to do with this matter. No one is listening. The two relics themselves are clear evidence that Abvance has set everything up. Lady Mompis's testimony is not taken into account. The words of some 20-year-old girl cannot be considered clear evidence. She herself does not know what she is saying and may have made a mistake. Compared to this, the butler's testimony and the disappearance of the Sudanese woman from the residence are two clear evidence. The Duke asks to say something. Just now, His Majesty cited as evidence the disappearance of the maid. This should be dug a little deeper. The man wants to report that one of the maids of the Duchess of Glintrant's retinue has also gone missing, right in the country in Ivanus. The king is surprised. He did not expect this to be true. He needs to understand if his brother is right. Tournier steps forward as Brigadier General of the Royal Guard. The gentleman must receive reports on the situation with the embassy's security. The lieutenant will report what she has already said earlier. As is known, Theodora is responsible for Isabella's protection. His Majesty personally entrusted her with this. The delegation from the country of Glintrant consists of 46 people. However, 2 weeks ago, one of the maids who personally served the Duchess disappeared. The woman screams, losing her composure for the first time. This is slander. Because not a single person in the retinue has been reduced, perhaps the numbers really do match. But Thorjai, along with the guards, confirms that there was a strange problem in the lists. The maid in charge of the Duchess's inner chambers was replaced. Her previous servant disappeared without a trace. It was established that before arriving at the embassy, she worked as a laundress in the Glintrant Palace. The maiden assures that this is one and the same person. His Majesty again takes the Duchess's side. The diplomatic delegation should not be disgraced with unsubstantiated speculation. Schönberg asks that they remember that the delegation could insult the princess of the state, Chloe. The gentleman turns to the girl and asks what all this means. It seems that he was not even aware of what Isabella was doing, but he already launched into false accusations. It's a pathetic sight. For the sake of disgracing his younger brother, he created a scandal of national proportions. Glintrant apologizes to His Majesty. After listening to the arguments, she admits that perhaps it was a different maid, but she does not remember every maid in detail. If she was replaced, it was only done for convenience. The girl notes that if the subordinate worked in the laundry and did hard work, then, finding herself in prosperous Ivanus, she had a desire to start a new life. Theodora is disgusted. The lady has no bones in her tongue. She feels sorry for the one who might have even been killed. Another wave of discussion is taking place among the aristocrats. Even if the Duchess is guilty, it will be extremely difficult to prove. She is wriggling out of it too skillfully, demonstrating that she can come up with anything just to clear her name. A voice is heard from the crowd. Camille Basselor asks for permission to speak. The king does not remember the girl. She introduces herself as the jeweler of the Marquise of Flanders. Her and her sister's shop is quite famous throughout the empire. As a jeweler, she wants to give a comment about the vase. She can give a hint, show what is wrong with it. Chloe herself is surprised that they come to the rescue so unexpectedly. His Majesty frowns. He does not understand whether his sister is really on his side. Because this is connected with her, Flanders lowers her gaze so that they do not try to say something to her about this. Emerald is a rather fragile stone. Earlier, the girl broke a vase to check whether it was made of glass. However, emerald is much easier to break than glass. The brunette does not understand how this can be true because it is a precious stone.
Camille asks to hand over the necklace that is on Her Highness's neck. She obediently removes the jewelry and hands it over to the expert. The blue-eyed woman carefully examines the item and makes a verdict. The stone is called morganite, but in fact, it is of the same nature as emerald, just a different color. It is even called pink emerald. After this, the girl throws the jewelry on the floor with all her might. A wave of surprise passes through. It is hard to believe that someone did this. Basilar is calm. If someone lends her something with an emerald, she will demonstrate the same. However, it is unlikely that anyone will dare to do this. The Duchess admits that the girl turned out to have character, and she did not know this, surprisingly. The gentleman shouts with displeasure. He was silent for a while, but he can no longer contain himself. They decided to introduce the fashion of breaking things in front of the nose of a royal person, Camille explains. She dared to suggest that Her Highness had no idea about the value of the vase. Those who have never dealt with jewelry do not know their true value. If the girl had known the value and properties of the stone, she would never have tried to prove its authenticity in such a strange way. This also indicates that if a person were to sell that emerald relic and plan to replace it with a common counterfeit, he would at least pretend to take care of it while he had the vase. He would need to continue to pretend that it was precious. Instead, the girl used the thing as a vessel for water and flowers. When Camille heard this from the butler, she almost fainted. After all, a man must know what an emerald vase looks like and how to care for it. The fact that the butler said nothing or suggested being more careful indicates that he is either ignorant or an accomplice. Glintrant tries to explain that a person who knew the item was counterfeit could simply be pretending not to value it. Since her youth, the Marquise of Flanders, Basilar, has been responsible for the jewelry. She knows the masters of Rue Papetin better than anyone else and, by the name of the jewelers, claims that there is no glass master who could make such a vessel in a week. There is silence. Everyone is thinking about their own things. His Majesty's sister comes forward. Since the reception has lost its joy, she asks to announce its end. The man is still angry, but still, he cannot say no. The aristocrats are informed that the event is over. Everyone is allowed to disperse, but Curtis will not allow the matter to be simply hushed up. As a brigadier general, he wants to appeal to the master. He asks for permission to arrest the Duchess of Glintrant. There is a suspicion of murder, and it did not appear out of thin air. The king wants to get to the bottom of the situation. Lieutenant Tournier did not have time to report something else, and the details are quite important. A maid who arrived from a foreign country and disappeared in Ibanez was recently found dead on the riverbank. A member of the diplomatic mission was murdered, and the Duchess was arrested as the main witness and suspect. The woman screams about evidence and that no one has the right to treat her like that. The Duke points to Lord Oslo, who is the main witness. It becomes clear what they were talking about when she wanted to greet Curtis. No matter how much the king loved the Schönberg couple, one must know one's limits in one's dirty tricks. High society condemns everything that happens. Realizing the situation he himself found himself in, the man throws out a phrase about how his brother can do whatever he wants. The Duchess reaches out to him and asks him to stop what is happening, but nothing works. The blonde reminds her that she won't get out of this so easily and will go with him. The woman found herself in a situation she didn't expect, and what's happening is making her feel physically ill. Camille was summoned by the Duke. She always tried to live righteously. This time she did something wrong, feeling a heavy gaze on herself. The jeweler promises that he will definitely reimburse the cost of the necklace. She is told that everything is fine, which makes her surprised. He asks to tell the girl's older sister that Curtis will remember that Basilar is a jewelry house that honors loyalty to its customers and will expect even more beautiful jewelry in the future. Laura was also called in for a conversation. She tries to justify her words, assuring that she really did order 38 vessels from the glassmaker and he made them in just 1 week, right in time for the holiday. It won't be difficult to check. The easiest option is the non-glass testing method. Her Highness has already demonstrated it at the reception. When she broke one of the vases, Gautier feels lost, realizing that punishment may await her. The lieutenant takes a stack of dishes. Placing it on the edge of the table, she begins to gradually knock over each of the plates. The girl's squeals are heard. It seems that these are Madame's own dishes. All the vessels of the Gautier family will be checked in the same way.
Not one of them can be missed. It seems that the beauty will be rewarded according to her merits. The punishment was carried out almost immediately, the Duchess thought. Her husband, sitting next to her, was interested in what she was thinking about. After all the events that had happened over time, she was simply convinced that it was better to live a healthy life. After everything that happened, she really thinks so. But besides that, if you just sit back, no one will come and punish the bad person, which means it's better to do everything yourself. It's safer. In the morning, the lieutenant reports to the master that they searched the entire Gautier estate, but did not find a single glass dish. The check was Chloe's method. The investigation into the maid's death is progressing. They were able to confirm that it was Alicia. The large birthmark on his forearm matches. Compensation will need to be sent to Glintrant. The young man plans to visit Theodora's family soon. What does your mother like? The girl notes that once will not be enough. The commander of the 8th Regiment is no longer in front of her, so she is not so afraid to bargain. And when he served there, he constantly said that if a chance is given, it is better to use it to the fullest. The subordinate was raised well. The schedule will be passed on through his brother. The lady is happy that there will be 2 visits. The young man looks at the list. The next interrogation will be difficult. He mentally prepares himself for the fact that he will have to endure many problems. Agatha enters the office and begins to cry almost from the doorway. She did not want to stand up for the Duchess, but simply, as a guard, was doing her duty. The young man believes that she helped a lot, and he regrets that he could not reciprocate her ardent feelings. He loves his wife. Hearing this, Mompiece bursts into tears even more than before. She becomes hysterical, and both her older brother and Curtis himself are tired. Noel is asked to take his sister home before she manages to flood the entire guard building. The next to enter is the Marquise. She knew from the very beginning that Glintrant was up to something. Before the reception, she came for a conversation. Reported that the maid, while examining the capital of Ivanus, found a vase. His Majesty suggested turning to Flanders. The woman recounts their meeting in detail, so that it becomes clear what happened. The heroine was shocked by what was happening, but decided to figure out the situation. It seems that the maid who found the item was the one who was killed. The Duchess was asked who this girl was, but she replied that she could not give a precise answer because everything was shrouded in mystery. The lady did not believe a single word. Her brother would never have kept someone who sold gifts from other countries around, especially doing it in complete secrecy. They say that Glintrant came to the king after she found the vase. First, when the lord was ready to accuse Chloe, she allegedly reasoned with him. Apparently, she needed to wait for the right moment, ideal for an ambush. Flanders doesn't handle heat very well. Her brother has been leading her by the nose with ice for over 20 years. If it weren't for Chloe, she would have suffered the whole week before the event. Thanks to ice cream and ice, she felt a little better. For this reason, she talks about what happened. The conversation is over. The man managed to find out everything he wanted to find out, which means he has no unnecessary questions left. The Duke is at dinner with his wife. He asks if she has eaten well. The maiden has been hungry since the morning. They did not want to reproach her, but all this sounds exactly like that, completely wrong. The king does not even let them go home. Remaining in yesterday's dress, the maiden does not feel at her best. She feels dirty. She was sitting in the adjutant's office again in the same outfit. She cannot go to the dining room in this form. Julia brought some lounge clothes, but it turned out that this wasn't the best option for walking around the guard headquarters. And Curtis wasn't any better either, because he spent the entire night investigating in the same condition as he had at the reception, without realizing it. Grimacing in disgust, the blonde orders one of the guards to go to the mansion and bring a spare uniform. The Duchess also needs clothes. They will have everything they need very soon. Because of Chloe, the young man feels a little awkward. She doesn't understand why everything is because of her. It's all because of her character. Looking with an angry look is useless. The lieutenant thinks that she is right. This will not make the form appear faster. While he waits, it would be more logical to interrogate someone else. The conversation turns to how Glintrant should be punished. The beauty suggests listening to the girl first, her expression calm. It's amazing where those words about not sitting idly by, and, on the contrary, it's better to punish the villain before passing judgment, have disappeared. Chloe wants to understand what made the Duchess behave the way she did. There is a reason, but whatever it is, it doesn't give her the right to insult Schönberg. That's the wrong attitude. The brunette nods. She agrees with that. The adjutant grinned and noted that, from the words spoken, she almost believed that she was truly loved. After freezing for a few moments, the gentleman found an answer. The girl had not gotten enough sleep to allow herself to do something like this. The name Berg carries a lot of weight, but if someone hears it, they will look like a couple who are putting their relationship on display. If possible, you shouldn't say such things when someone is nearby. She gives consent. Let's talk about pressing issues. The Duchess doesn't even have to be in the place where they were all left. All the evidence points to Glintrant being the culprit. The girl herself continues to keep her mouth shut. She hasn't let slip what's wrong, even though everything is obvious. Taking the report in her hands, the lady decides to study it a little, just to be aware of what happened. It turns out that His Majesty was completely on the sidelines. Openly criticizing the king is not the best idea, but it was not possible to hide it completely either. There are articles in the newspaper that subtly hint at the ruler's mistake. Not everyone belongs to the royal faction. The original plan was to put the blame on Chloe and force a divorce. But since everything turned out badly, the brother wants to deal with his former ally as soon as possible. 2 deputy foreign ministers have applied for indefinite leave, most likely secretly sent as ambassadors to Glintrant. And all the information that Curtis has collected about that kingdom, having received intelligence about a possible engagement, falls into his hands. Judging by the circumstances of that woman's appearance in the royal house of the country, she had one child. This was hidden very carefully. Initially, the royal family wanted to get Schönberg. They didn't care who the wife would be. The main thing was that she would be easy to control. Isabella was chosen based on the principle that she would obey. She is a beauty, but for someone else, she is just someone whose life has no meaning. If left as is, she will disappear without a trace on the way home, and people higher up will deal with her. This will be more convenient for both countries. Curtis does not consider this his concern, but the woman is a little worried about it. They advise her to think about herself. Even though Chloe washed, she still smells bad. Soldiers are allowed to do this.
A hand touches her hair. It is disheveled in all directions.
Apparently due to uncomfortable clothes or a hairstyle, she can't even eat normally. The brunette is thinking about how best to answer what is being asked of her. She was so criticized, and the Duke himself smirked contentedly. The lady promised that she would change into her uniform. She did not want to be labeled a prostitute. She wanted to keep quiet about it, but accidentally let it slip. It all happened in the morning. The mood among the security was tense. Chloe's stomach, which had not eaten anything all day, began to make strange sounds. She needed something to eat. Because of the investigation, she was locked up. No one was allowed to go home, although she should have been grateful for the fact that she was locked in the adjutant's room, considering herself the victim in the whole situation. But she could have ended up in prison. Then everything would have been much worse. The woman couldn't wait any longer, so she got out of bed and walked to the exit, opened the doors, and appeared in the doorway. Initially, conversations were heard, but as soon as she left, everything stopped. The soldiers stared at the lady. It was somehow awkward to go to the canteen in such an atmosphere, although they were still very hungry and had no choice. The lady approached the guard standing closest to the door and asked how the official investigation was progressing, while the witnesses were being questioned individually. And when it was the Duchess's turn, she would be contacted. The conversation was interrupted by an offensive word. Someone called Chloe a prostitute. This is not surprising since the king publicly announced that Abvans could be poisoned, that service in the guard would not be easy, but nothing could be done about it. Initially, this is exactly what the girl had been counting on when she signed her contract. The girl asks the sergeant if she can order food delivery from the cafeteria to his office. Before the wedding, she always ordered delivery during night shifts. The conversation was interrupted by a young man who chuckled when he noticed that an important member of the royal family had come to visit them. He accused her of walking around the office in her pajamas and waiting until she received food in bed. The girl was offered to go back, but she listens and only asks to mark the request received, because it is also quite important for her to get food, otherwise her stomach will completely fail. A familiar voice, Captain Henri is offered a test of strength. He has long wanted to check what his face is good for. Ezra is not going to stand aside when his girlfriend is insulted. He hits the enemy before he even has time to come to his senses. The other guards begin to shout, and soon they too begin to fight, simultaneously blaming each other for various reasons. The lady understands that this cannot continue. Without giving the sergeant time to come to his senses, the Duchess takes his pistol and shoots at the wall right next to Henri's head. The lieutenant is asked if she is crazy because she could have hit him right away. The woman is calm, she knows her rights, and came not as one of the guards, but as Schonberg. Besides, she still has bullets left. The pistol touches her forehead again, not allowing her to object. Ezra hits the boy again because he calls the lieutenant crazy. The situation escalates again. The second wave of the fight is not long in coming. There is such a noise in the corridor that the senior officer has to come and sort it out. After some time, they finally manage to separate those who had been fighting with each other all this time. Dubois is asked how he could have been the first to get into a fight. He wouldn't want to sit and wait until he got hit right in the face. The Duchess wants to figure it out on her own and asks a question, smiling slightly. Ezra answers in his own manner and then laughs. Obviously, he impressed Her Highness. Maybe he ate something wrong. The cafeteria should be checked to see what exactly was wrong. Chloe didn't comment on it. She just wanted peace of mind. She had to deal with too much. She had endured it all. Curtis turned out to be the only one who was not aware of what was happening. Admiral Victor said that the gentleman was busy, and therefore he would sort everything out himself. And he also asked not to report, because he understood where this could lead. The results of the decision should be ready within a day. The blonde asks that if they are not made by 6 o'clock, he will personally take care of finding the culprits and delivering the correct sentence. The girl offers to listen to what Glintrant can tell. She will not tell the whole story, but at least part of it. You need to understand her motives. If the Duke married her, he would get Glintrant, but it is not clear what she would get. A man who thinks so highly of himself that he considers himself the best gift. Since it was Chloe who became his wife, she can truthfully say that this looks more like a disaster than a benefit. She rocks in her chair and it almost falls because the young man makes a sharp movement to the side. At the last moment, the Duke manages to grab her. Just a little more, and the girl could have hit her head. A slight fright was felt, which was present even in the Duke. It seems that for a man, the most important thing is character, not appearance, because without a good character, there is nothing to talk about. The hero wants to clarify why such a conclusion was suddenly reached. Despite her outstanding beauty, it's strange to hear that a woman who has become a wife considers her husband a real nightmare. Chloe is helped back to her seat. They haven't finished talking about more important things. It is possible that marriage with the Duke would not have brought Glintrant any benefit. For a person who already has a child, remarriage is not the best option. There are too many disadvantages and pitfalls, many problems that could harm the child. It's like playing roulette, because you never know in advance what kind of person your partner will be. There are people who will raise their hand against their wife, and if there is a baby, the worries and troubles will only increase. The Duke has some obligations, and yet it must be taken into account that she is a woman and holds the position of a duchess. It is worth believing that Chloe is decent and is able to understand the situation of those who are unable to express their problems to society. It's time to go to a personal conversation. From the very beginning, the lady says that she will communicate only in the presence of the king. Without him, she will not talk. He is not such a free man to engage in such matters. The certainty that the girl has not yet committed any crimes remains engraved in her head. A lady under suspicion of murder is usually the criminal who is told that evidence is needed. Besides another problem, the girl is accused of insulting the royal family of Avanus, which is not such a serious charge compared to murder, but it is almost proven after what happened at the event. It is worth remembering that the Duchess and Duke also belong to the family. Insulting anyone related by blood to the ruler is punishable by death. Even circumstantial evidence will be enough to execute the lady. Lowering her head, she sighs and smiles. Obviously, His Majesty has seized on a wonderful opportunity. He will not immediately object to punishment, even if it is based only on circumstantial evidence. When some time has passed, under the pretext that the situation with Glintrant has become difficult, he may place the responsibility on his lordship and send him to a foreign country. He has his own plan. The wife intervenes. This is already crossing the line. They are talking about things that are unlikely to happen. The girl is trying to trample the ruler into the dirt, smiling. The lady notes that he does not even deserve a gutter. He crawled into her bedroom twice. Under the pretext of comforting the lady, he constantly arranged drinking parties. But there is something worse. It is difficult to count how many times he attacked her while drunk. She endured all this time because this is not important for a woman with a child. The pink-haired girl laughs. She notes that it looks like the Archduchess is still unmarried. She was just called by her title. The talk turns to that blood on the bed linen. The prank was extremely unsurprising. Many were fooled, but the Duchess could not be fooled. The gentleman still cannot understand what exactly she is getting at. She had never been so open before. It was known from the first day that the couple married for love. They themselves confirmed this, and a man who loves his woman will not advertise the details of his intimate relationship so that other people can visualize everything. Even if they deceived everyone and married for convenience, it doesn't change anything. There are many aristocrats who enter into contract marriages, and there are also a huge number of those who sleep in the same bed but don't feel love. The girl is not given the opportunity to object. If they shared the same bed, there would be no need to deliberately shake the blankets, since the situation developed this way. It would be enough to satisfy each other's mutual desire and sit in the room together for a couple of days. With their actions, the lovers scream that they are not sleeping with each other. The lady does not understand why Chloe does this. After all, she was howling for a man with wealth, position, and excellent appearance. Berg has a smug expression on his face. The words flattered him. When the Duchess got married, she thought that she was incredibly lucky, because at least her husband was not some old man. Only after some time, she began to understand that this thought was quite stupid. His lordship decides to meet her halfway. If Glintrant admits his guilt, he will help provide protection from his older brother. At least in this way, it will be possible to provide the girl with a better life. She will not accept something that she is not completely sure of. Thanks to the fact that the woman called him trash, she managed to tell a piece of the truth. However, the Virgo does not intend to continue ranting. There aren't many options. Either be killed based on circumstantial evidence, or admit your guilt and become a criminal. Even if you manage to escape punishment, in Glintrant, only death awaits you. The Archduchess didn't even think about it right away. There was no possibility of negotiations. The conversation was about Celeria. The Lord didn't need the land at all, and the King didn't need the state either. He was only interested in wealth and the country that would become rich thanks to it. Nobody needs a small country. The young man doesn't even need the status of a marquis. If the girl wants it that way, he can refuse it too, and handing it over to her would be as easy as pie. Presumably, even that won't help. Celeria herself is not what the beauty really wants. The gentleman insists on being honest with him, in which case he will be able to provide the assistance that is due. If His Grace were the Duke of Therasmenia or Tacarecta, they would certainly cooperate with him, but he is a member of the Ivaness family. The answer is ambiguous. The lady reports that the king is already beginning to suspect that the two did not share a bed. A person's personal guesses are one thing, testimony from a servant is another. The next scandal may break out from the butler's lips. The two study the information in more detail. The Duke feels slightly irritated and asks if the lieutenant always reads information like this, lying upside down. She is not in an interrogation room and does not see a problem in lying down for a while. The young man is not in a better position either. He is sitting on the floor next to the bed because he decided it would be cleaner there. The beauty does not sit on the chair because it is hard and does not allow her to sit in one position for a long time. She is offered to replace it only if she is able to work. The beauty begins to tell that she could do with a pillow and a footstool, that improved working conditions are needed not to rest, but to work more. The girl is becoming more and more like a master, and this amazes her. The conditions are slave-like, but for 10 million coins a year, the position is advantageous. The girl again plunges into studying the documents. Isabella bears the surname Blackwood. She has a son who is being held hostage. She comes from a ruined, noble family. Her first marriage was to an old man from a wealthy family. However, her husband died 6 months after the wedding, and she moved to another city without even receiving an inheritance. Changing men like gloves, the girl earned money by working as a kept woman. One of the aristocrats she met there was the son of King Glintrant's nanny. The nanny didn't like the girl and slapped her, who responded and was brought to trial. The heroine met a manager named Blackwood during the trial, married him, and even gave birth to a child. The enraged nanny appealed personally to the king, and he learned about Belle thanks to a complaint. Upon seeing her face, he not only dealt with her, but also adopted her, making her a princess. Apparently, the man considered her too beautiful to simply get rid of, so he used her beauty to broker marriage deals. He thought that the one who had her son as a hostage would do everything that was asked, and the truth could only be obtained from the lips of the Duchess. The pirate Bartholomew seems to be the answer. The two cities that the lady mentioned both have a port, and they also border the Soroba Sea, where the Pirate King operates, which makes it possible to immediately begin a punitive operation. Compared to this, the help that the Duke offered was not so attractive. The maiden could not even achieve the desired result to please King Glintrant, so she was not that good. While reading the information, Chloe brushes her hair back with her hand, which accidentally ends up right on the young man's face. She bends down to remove it all, leaving just one last hair that the girl doesn't have time to remove. Obviously, the man is uncomfortable being touched. His face changes expression when he is angry, usually becomes serious, and when he gets even angrier, he laughs. Usually he blushes only when he is worried. The girl cannot give a logical account of her behavior. She recalls the words about how they fell in love while working together late at night. She was always sure that there was no chance for love or simple sympathy. Seeing the Duke in this light, the lady feels as if everything has changed. She almost admitted the thought that he likes her, which, in fact, still remains more than an absurd assumption, considering what he is like. Chloe forces herself to pull herself together and reminds herself that the young man doesn't like her and never will. Anything can happen, and their intimacy is nothing special. She always thought that only someone who is already desperate and can't find anyone better would decide to date Curtis. Sometimes feelings can manifest themselves. You can't take it as something serious, otherwise, you will end up in a huge abyss. The girl brought a wet towel. It seems he is thinking about the same thing as she is, so he will need a little reboot. Lieutenant Noel is not here, so the adjutant will have to take care of Schönberg after he wipes his face. Simply throws the towel on the floor. His lordship asks why the girl is picking up the thing. If a man doesn't clean up after himself, then there's no one else to do it. Hearing this, he snatches it from his hands and leaves, although he still throws it on the floor, only in a different place. An aristocrat doesn't know the value of things at all. Schönberg is once again convinced that the room is a bit cramped, and by playing on his pity, the beauty shows with her whole body that she was always very uncomfortable working late in such conditions, although she was not the only one who worked overtime. His lordship has a separate bedroom and a private bathroom, and the bed is comfortable. It must be very pleasant on it. While someone else sleeps curled up on a mouse bed, the girl is offered to sleep on the bed in the office. The Duchess completely changes her mind. She complained that it was uncomfortable to sleep, but she wants to be alone, and his lordship is more comfortable being alone. Rather than sharing his place with someone, he is not going to let his wife in. He does not even allow her to let her hair down in the bedroom, and the other level simply cannot withstand it. Virgo does not intend to criticize the philosophy of hygiene and cleanliness. She has different rules, and this is normal, but she wants to show that they do not get along together. Untying the tail, Chloe scares with her hair. Even if Isabella hadn't let it slip about the stain, rumors would have soon spread that the young man definitely had problems with his head. To have such a reaction to a simple gesture. It was better to only say something insincere so diligently when they were in front of strangers. First, you need to deal with one problem, and then think about a relationship. Curtis said that he wants to have an affair, but at this rate, it will be difficult for him to find someone for himself. Time is running out. The heroine was sure that the young man would forget about everything. If Glintrant hadn't interfered at the banquet, it would have been possible to select at least one or two candidates. The blonde man asked again, as if he didn't understand what they were talking about. It's unlikely that a lady would choose those at a banquet who would be suitable for security or something like that, he snorts, considering it incomprehensible.
No one discussed the fact that a lady would be allowed to choose a new partner. All this hints at the fact that the man wants to choose for himself. It is his right. But it will be difficult. With all the problems that the Duke has in his head, it is difficult for him to get close to someone, but it is worth trying. The girl is not joking when she says that she wants his lordship to start a new relationship as soon as possible. This is the only way to get out of a situation that is not entirely comfortable. The contract is still ongoing. The Duchess has the right to share Schönberg's bed, which has gotten her into the king's disfavor, but ultimately, when night falls, she still has to sleep on a prison cot. She expected this, so she endures, but she won't tolerate it forever. Constant humiliation will not be to anyone's liking. On top of all this, something happened that was bound to happen under no pretext. There is no guarantee that the accident will not happen again. There is a distance. While it is still safe, the heroine wants Curtis to quickly find someone who will suit him. After all, they are not destined to be together anyway. The lady does not plan to blame the young man. She was not hired for this. Sitting down on the bed, she invites him to sit next to her and continue the conversation. When he doesn't receive consent, Schönberg cleans the bed and offers again. It's amazing how he managed to fight with such a character. After becoming a brigadier general, he no longer goes to the battlefield. Regiment number 8 was always at the front line. They told how the detachment fought, wallowing in mud and dust, and on the Gulden front, for 3 days in a row, they sat side by side with soldiers in the trenches, most likely. There they had to restrain themselves with all their might and endure. What's happening in the castle can also be called a war. They say that soldiers on the front lines suppress the feeling of guilt for murder with a strong fighting spirit. And it was the same at the wedding, because everything turned out the same way for the lieutenant. It is impossible to live with such a feeling forever. It is difficult if your whole life becomes a battle. The goal of marriage is to find peace and quiet. If you suffer just a little bit, everything will definitely work out and you won't have to suffer anymore. Peace means peace of mind, but only for the Duke. The Duchess is already feeling well. She only needs material well-being. The day when the lady completes her mission and returns to Abvans will be the day when everything will finally get better. It seems that it would be better if His Majesty dies. We must continue to be patient. The blonde remains silent before asking the most important question. Does the lady mean that he needs to sleep with her? Chloe doesn't know how to react to this. She didn't expect it to be a reality. The Duke also suggests clarifying something. When he said to sleep in his bed, they are not obliged to sleep together. This is not written anywhere. Apparently, the girl was so jealous of someone else's bed that she was offered to change rooms. One feels ashamed. No one warned the lady. However, looking at how happy she is, it becomes a little offensive. The young man reaches his hand to his cheek. He finds the advice very appropriate. One cannot pay attention to some hair for the sake of spiritual well-being or more for the sake of Chloe's material well-being. The Duke will act according to the plan. It will be difficult for him to do what is required, but the best solution would be to get used to the hair so that in the future he does not shy away from others. To get used to it, he needs to get closer. Curtis jokes that they can do this earlier and not waste time on it. The girl tries to cling to the crumbs of reality and reminds him of the agreement, which stated that Chloe would not invade her personal space. Only halfway through the sentence does she realize that the opposite situation was not specified. One could say that the young man follows the advice and recommendation of the young lady. He doesn't care about anything. He is forced to move on to another plan. Getting up, the lady suggests going to his lordship's office. On the way there, the girl constantly looks at the different flowers in the corridors. She has developed a love for them. The office is spacious and clean, and thanks to the man's decision, the girl will be honored to sleep in a normal room. As she's about to sit down on the bed, Chloe knocks over a vase of flowers she picked up in one of the corridors. She's counting on the general's misophobia. The Duke would be better off sleeping in his residence, and she'd head back to the adjutant's room. Smiling ominously, the young man takes her by the shoulder and calmly says that since this is how it turned out, the two of them will sleep on an uncomfortable bed in the office where Schönberg was going to go. Neither of them will be able to sleep on a wet bed. The Duke said that he loved cleanliness, but the girl was counting on something a little different. She needed to be much more careful. The young man enjoyed lightly mocking others,
and feeling cornered, the Duchess didn't know whether to use her second wish. It seems that the lieutenant is crying, she assures him in return, but her eyes are red. The hero, surprisingly, asks for forgiveness for his behavior. He did not think that everything was so serious. It was unpleasant, but without stopping, the man behaved inappropriately. The lady can sleep at the table in the office or sitting. Schönberg demonstratively leaves, but he is stopped. Everything is so completely in order that Chloe is even ready to sleep in the same bed. They go to the office. The bed isn't that dirty. The sheets have been changed, even though Abvance herself managed to lie down in them, but it's tolerable. The Duke's standards of cleanliness are quite strict. He needs to disinfect everything that has ever been used. It all comes down to the theory that Chloe liked her boss. She realizes that she regrets her decision to lie down next to him. It's logical that she must have had separate incentives, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to hold on to the position for 3 months. There wasn't even any reward for it. Whether or not the bed would have to be changed as a reward, the young man knew that it was uncomfortable to sleep in. He constantly worked until dawn, not because it brought him pleasure. The guards were in disarray, a gathering of idle aristocrats who wanted to gain status. Theodora is a good example of an excellent guardsman. The unit that the general commanded during the war was entirely composed of such people. They could be called exemplary. By order of His Majesty, my brother was transferred to work from a wonderful place to the guard, where he found it unbearable. Just at that time, Chloe arrived. At first, it seemed to her that the general was a military maniac. The young man reveals his cards. He heard the adjutant call him, and even knows that she played darts, using his portrait as a target. The lady cannot swear that this did not happen, so he thanks her for her generosity. He wants to laugh. There have been many reasons for laughter lately. When Abvance is nearby, the gentleman allows himself to relax. The maiden again says something funny, mentioning that, in fact, she only married to teach him a lesson. Everything is said to his face, but the Duke's reaction is unexpected. At the time, the girl was a little out of her mind. You can imagine what would happen to a person if he worked night shifts for 3 days straight and then suddenly became his boss's mate. Chloe improvised about her family when she told the story. Marriage turned out not to be as terrible as it seemed. You can't call someone who pays $10 million a year a disaster. The young man jokes that the words about marriage being good sound ambiguous when they are close. He needs to find a mistress quickly. It's uncomfortable to sleep at night. The girl stretched out and squeezed Schönberg. She sleeps carefree at any time. She's used to it, because she huddled all the time with the younger ones. Her brothers and sisters are very similar to her in character, just as independent. I remember a recent conversation. Leah said that she and Iris were going home. She knew that it was not very right to live at the expense of her older sister's husband. They could not constantly take advantage of hospitality and go to school by carriage. In that house, which was already quite dilapidated, an attack could have been carried out. It was possible to find out about the condition without arriving at the place. The Duke checked everything. The place turned out to be truly ideal for hired killers. The house is small and old. There are small rooms, 2 or 3 old beds, and on the wall there is an illegible map and traces of Iris's presence. The young man wonders if the Duchess slept there just as peacefully. The world is full of those who do not get along with their families and are ready to kill them. Of all the people the master knows, Abvance is the strangest and funniest. He hears the voice of his mother, who has been haunting him for a long time, advising him to die because there is nothing good in such a life. It becomes hard to breathe. The sensations roll in. Chloe calls Iris and presses the young man closer to her. The voice has disappeared. It becomes easier. A strange feeling of safety finally appears. It has become noticeably better. Despite the fact that the hair touches his body and face, he does not experience such strong aversion as it used to. He needs to move away. Inside, he is fighting the desire to stay in the arms. If the Duke moves away, Chloe will wake up almost immediately. The bed in the adjutant's room is the same as the prisoner's, but it turns out to be much more comfortable than one could have imagined. The prisoners are living too well. It's not right. The Duke decides to cancel the bed replacement. Abvance will be indignant, but nothing can be done. It is necessary to quickly complete the investigation and close the case in order to fire Philip from the residence or keep him under supervision. Early in the morning, one of the detachment commanders came to see Lieutenant Montpeace, and asked him to do something with the adjutant's office, hinting at what was going on there. The brunette couldn't believe his ears, so he went to check everything out himself. He found a very enchanting picture that raised a million questions. He went to work and asked to send the two to him as soon as they woke up. The young man simply ran away and asked not to say that he had seen anything. He knew in advance that he would not be able to withstand the hysteria and bad character of the general who had woken up in someone's arms. The situation with the vase was turned around in such a way that the maid was to blame for everything. It's amazing how outstanding Alicia was. If she was able to prepare a fake, sell it, and even steal $3 million. The girl was shamelessly framed and killed. There was no other way. It was impossible to make a criminal out of Glintrant. The king is still covering for her. He says that the Duchess can be kept as a hostage, although there is no more use for her. Princess Beatrice even hosted a tea party to pretend she was trying to reconcile the brothers. Chloe doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to pretend it's normal to share a table with Isabella. Even though the young man asked Frederick to send the necessary servants, the spy will still get in one way or another. There will be an important event at the tea party. The crown princess must introduce Iris as her future chaperone. The fact that the girl is appointed as a mentor for life will later become a huge advantage when she decides to go out into society. It is unknown whether she will want to study or make her debut and look for a husband. I wanted to do everything possible for her, so that all roads are open. The girl wants to ask something. The Duke said that he would grant a divorce, taking the blame on himself. As soon as the favorable time comes, he does not know what time exactly. He did not even think about it. Answering a question with a question, Schönberg asks whether Abvance knew that she would marry a general when she took up the post of adjutant. Anything could lie ahead. Every turn leads to something new. In the future, a lady should not be involved in choosing a mistress. Her taste is not trusted. A man is even worse in this matter. This can be understood by looking at the one he made his wife. The words came out contradictory. Chloe insulted herself. The girl falls silent. She went too far and should have already gotten what she deserved, but nothing happened. It becomes awkward. The heroine herself does not know, since when the confusion between them began. She does not suspect that it all began that morning when they woke up in an embrace, being on the bed in the adjutant's office. After what happened, the two feel awkward with each other. They feel that they cannot find a common topic of conversation, and if they do find one, she quickly cuts herself off. In the morning, the lady thought that she was with Iris. She belatedly wondered why her sister's head was so big. Opening her eyes, she saw Curtis's face. Screaming, the heroine pushed him out of bed. Schönberg defends himself by saying that he did nothing. He was just sleeping peacefully, and then he was hugged. The Duchess probably thought that her sister had come to her at night, asking for forgiveness for her behavior. Curtis didn't say anything then. It hit him in the face in the morning. He woke up quickly, so he could go and complete the investigation. The girl also needed to get ready. The moment passed in an instant. But even hours later, there is still a certain tension in the air. The young man looks handsome, and it is necessary to remind him that the lady does not want to pay attention to him. A promise is difficult to keep. Before the wedding, it was much easier, although the girl got angry every time she saw the general's face, and then took out her anger with darts, which she threw at his portrait. Images of the past flash before my eyes. The way the man stood on one knee, the way he helped me tie my dress, the shock of the kiss at the wedding. All of this just won't leave my head. It wouldn't hurt to erase the memory with a spell. Virgo helps herself calm down with the words that her boss said earlier. He said that he was going to find a mistress as soon as possible. The adjutant is working. They are too different, so there is no need to take everything too emotionally. There's no point in further developing the relationship. Neither of them benefits from trying their luck. Due to the difference in status, each will represent a weakness for the other. Curtis also pays attention, but this is not a reason for an affair. The girl answers the question about what she's been thinking about again. The idea of changing the contract appears in her head. She needs to remember what Chloe signed when she became an adjutant. Because of this, she won't even be able to quit. According to the rules, once a contract is signed, it cannot be changed. The man shows himself to be that same evil boss. The only difference is that he pays in abundance, which is something to be proud of. At the entrance, they ask for invitations. A standing guard greets the Schönberg couple and lets them go ahead. Tea will be served soon. Once again, wild thoughts creep into her head, and the girl becomes so immersed in them that she doesn't notice how someone offers her a hand and helps her get out of the carriage. The Duke understands what Chloe wants to do, but he will only agree to make changes to the contract if he also makes some adjustments. Advance needs to think things through carefully.